Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto Uzumaki is a ninja that will be forever reborn and reincarnated part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Ring 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 beep. Saturday, huh? Seems like I woke up a bit later than normal. Oh well, I got today off from my job today thanks to old man Yurichi. I really should see someone. If I keep talking to myself out loud, better not do that. Probably thrown into an insane asylum for it, muttered a blonde, spiky-haired teen with a chuckle following his conclusion. Lifting a single hand up to his face, the teen quickly began to rub his eyes with the palm of his hand, easily getting rid of the slightly sleepiness he had beforehand. Pushing himself up to a sitting position, the blonde-haired teen could only blink as the sound of birds chirping hit his ears. Rubbing his face a bit more, mindful of the weird and sensitive whisker-like marks he had since his birth, the teen threw his futon's blanket off himself, showing that he beneath the blankets a simple orange singlet with long black sweatpants and a pair of white socks. Stretching to get the kinks out of his back and shoulders, the teen then began to stand, using his hand to help push him off his futon. Standing at a good height of 5 feet 11 inches, the teen then began to walk across his small apartment towards the bathroom. Opening the door to the room, the teen quickly sent his eyes towards the small mirror and grinned, showing his cerulean blue eyes sparkling with a slight joy due to the present day, that day being Saturday. Walking towards the mirror, the teen quickly grabbed his toothpaste and brush and enthusiastically began to brush his teeth, a joyful tune being played within his mind as he swished the liquid within his mouth before spitting it out into the sink. Placing his toothbrush down next to his already placed toothpaste, the teen simply gave a grin towards his reflection before turning around and walking out of his small bathroom and into his apartment living room/kitchen. Walking behind the kitchen table and opening a cupboard, the teen kept a happy grin on his face as the teen grabbed a bowl of instant ramen. However, just as the teen was about to open the bowl, "Uzumaki!" shouted a man with a gruff tone, slamming a ruler beside the head of a sleeping Naruto Uzumaki, something which made him jump slightly as he saw the ruler only centimeters away from his face. Lifting his head slightly, the blonde-haired teen simply moved his eyes around the classroom he found himself in with a squinted glare, reason being that his eyes haven't adjusted to the sudden light within the room. Noticing that everyone in the class seemed to silently talking about something, the blonde-haired teen simply returned his eyes onto his teacher, who had his eyes also firmly planted onto him. "Yes?" asked the teen with a blank stare, stupid teacher having to wake him up from his happy place. The man crossed his arms as he stared towards the spiky-haired teen, the occasional twitch coming from his right eye at the board and blank reply. "Please explain to me why you are asleep in class when you are supposed to be paying attention," shouted the man as he leaned against the table of the teen, who simply leaned his head back from the wind generated from the shout. Raising a hand to his face and pretending to wipe some spit off his face, the teen simply gave a loud sigh. "Maybe it was because you bored me to sleep with your today class we have speech," replied the teen once more, only closing his eyes in a slight bit of sadness as he heard multiple students call him dead last and delinquent behind his back. Seriously. He fell asleep because the teacher just kept blabbing on, and yet he was being called a dead last and delinquent for it. What the hell did he do? Snapping back into reality, the teen with spiky blonde hair looked at the teacher, who seemed to be waiting for something. "What?" asked the teen, something which seemed to finally annoy the teacher into submission. Pointing the ruler towards the classroom door, the teacher spoke in a gruff and irritated tone. "Naruto Uzumaki. Get out. If you aren't here to learn, then simply get out. I would expect some effort from one who is sitting on a little 50% for each and every subject he has. Keep going the way you are and you'll be disappointed later on in your life when you realize that the world is a lot harder than you think," said the teacher, his gruff voice softening slightly as he really didn't mind the teen, but the way he was going he would only be able to pass without any sort of chance at a good career later down the road. Naruto could only stare at the front door of the classroom for a few seconds before picking his bag up off the floor. Slinging it around his back, Naruto walked out with his head slightly low, his bangs covering his saddened eyes as he heard more comments from his peers. Why did they always pick on him? Was it because of his slightly different accent which he randomly picked up? Was it his apparently intimidating appearance? How does being 6 feet 2 inches and blonde make him intimidating? Giving a large sigh, Naruto began to walk towards the stairs. Being the last period, he might as well go home as he didn't do any extracurricular activities with any clubs. However, just as he walked down the stairs, the blonde-haired teen paused for a moment. Wasn't the indoor pool in the large gymnasium free now? Giving a grin, Naruto walked towards the back entrance of the school. Walking through the back entrance, Naruto whistled a merry tune as he walked towards Koa's Olympic-sized gymnasium. The Ko Gymnasium was a very large addition to the school as it holds most of the indoor sports clubs within a single area, example being the ice hockey team and the volleyball team. It always amazed Naruto how a privately funded school afforded the actual school's creation, as he knew that the main building was well over millions, along with the land for Ko as well. But he wasn't going to look into it that much anyway. He was lucky that the government gave him an orphan salary and entrance to the school, reason being since he had a good score on the entrance exam that the school gave when it was announced it was being turned into a co-ed school. How he did well on the test he didn't know. But if what he got from the teachers daily told him anything, he was apparently nowhere near what they expected him to be getting when they compared his current scores to his entrance exam scores. Shaking his head from the thoughts, the teenage blonde finally arrived towards the gym's indoor pool. Although he knew there was another pool the school had, no one had taken the effort to clean it in years, and because of that, no one was willing to go near it. Moving towards the changing rooms, Naruto quickly threw off his school shirt and shorts before putting on a pair of boardies before returning back to the pool. Crouching down slightly, the blonde-haired teen placed his hand on the surface of the water and grinned, not too cold, not too warm. Just perfect like the school always sets out to do. Walking back a few feet, the blonde-haired teen grinned as he sprinted forward and jumped into the air. Woohoo! Shouted Naruto as he cannonballed into the large pool, enjoying how the water enclosed his body as he sunk towards the bottom. Holding his breath, Naruto enjoyed the feeling of the water going past and through his hair. It always felt nice as the water made him feel weightless in its depths. Like how the wind made him feel all tingly and fast when he usually goes for a short jog on a Saturday morning. Realizing that he now had to come up for air, the blonde quickly pushed against the floor and started to swim up to the surface. His head breaking the surface, Naruto took a large gulp of air as he shook his hair, sending the water from both his face and hair away. Giving a small smile, Naruto pushed his belly up so that he could float on his back. Looking towards the roof of the gym with nothing but a peaceful smile upon his face as he closed his eyes. Ring! Seems like the final bell went already, thought Naruto as he kept his eyes closed, still enjoying the feeling of the water holding him up. However, due to the fact that Naruto was closing his eyes and not paying attention, he had not noticed a woman walk out of the girls' changing room and jumped into the air, intent to dive into the pool, and because of Naruto floating near the edge of the pool, which was slightly above the water's height, giving the blonde teen some cover, the woman could only widen her eyes in shock and she dived straight onto the blonde, who snapped his eyes open when he felt both him and the thing that hit him start to sink. Snapping his eyes open underwater, while ignoring the stinging pain, Naruto sent his eyes all around to find what had hit him a moment ago. And when he did, he was shocked to find out it was none other than one of the senior girls of the school and club president. That being Kyome, third-year student and president of the tennis club. Getting his mind back on track, Naruto watched as the tennis club president continued to sink further into the depths, something that confused Naruto until he noticed that there wasn't a single movement from the woman sinking, along with water entering her partly open mouth, which had only meant one thing. She wasn't awake. Quickly getting his wits, Naruto began to quickly swim towards the knocked-out female as quickly as he could. He couldn't screw up here. He couldn't let a peer drown while he was there. Swimming behind the woman and moving a single arm to grab her waist, Naruto quickly brought the woman to his chest and swam upwards, his own air supply slowly disappearing. Lucky for him, however, he was able to reach the surface. Holding the knocked-out third-year woman, Naruto hefted her onto the plastic surrounding that the pool had. Quickly lifting himself up onto the edge, Naruto moved the woman away from the pool before moving his head next to her heart. Hearing a beat, Naruto then moved his head just in front of the woman's mouth. Not feeling her breath, Naruto quickly, but gently opened the woman's mouth. Looking into her mouth and seeing nothing, Naruto quickly pinched her nose and placed his mouth onto hers. Breathing as hard as he could, Naruto watched as the woman's chest rose and fell. Remember to burn the image of her chest later, Naruto. Focus! Thought Naruto to himself, as he reached his free hand over to Kyome's wrist and trying to find a beat. Naruto gave a slight sigh of thanks as he felt a weak pulse run through the woman's wrist. Taking in a big gulp of air and once more, Naruto quickly breathed into the woman, making sure to keep his eyes on her chest and hand on her wrist, making sure that he was doing the procedure correctly at all times. Lifting his head up once more to draw in another breath, he once again placed his lips upon Kyome's once more before breathing in. However, Unlike the previous attempts, Naruto pulled his head back from Kyome's near instantly as he saw her snap her eyes open and sit up before vomiting all the water from her lungs. Rubbing her back as she puked all over her legs, Naruto couldn't help but feel a bit sick as the woman puked for a good few seconds, meaning that she had swallowed a lot of the pool water while unconscious. Watching Kyome spit out the last of the water made Naruto release a silent sigh. He had been nervous and scared as hell when he was doing the procedure, something which he and his class learned a few weeks prior to his current predicament. Watching as the woman took a few breaths in, Naruto continued to rub on her back, making sure to let the woman breathe before she did anything. Within a few moments the room became silent with Naruto still rubbing Kyome's back in support, and Kyome simply staring forwards. "Are you okay?" asked Naruto in a quiet tone, making sure that he didn't startle the woman by any chance. Kyome seemed to snap out of her staring before turning her head towards him with a slight nod. "Why yes I am, thank you Naruto-san for saving me," said Kyome with a quiet tone as she raised a single hand towards her own heart, making sure that it was still beating from the shock she just went through. Naruto seemed to smile slightly as he slowly helped the student stand up, using his own body as a support for the currently quiet woman. "Do you need your bag now, or do you want me to get it after I take you to the nurse's office?" asked Naruto, keeping his tone silent as he held the woman up by her waist and arm. Kyome was silent for a few moments before muttering a quick "nurse please." Seeing as how he shouldn't waste time, Naruto slowly walked the shaky woman towards the gym's exit before continuing towards Koa's main building once more. Entering through the back, Naruto made sure to have a good grip on the still slightly shaking woman as he and Kyome trembled down the hall, making a few students who were getting ready for their clubs point towards Naruto as he carried the near-naked woman towards the office. "OMG. Did you see that? The delinquent Naruto just hurt Kyome Abe and is walking with her body in his arms. We must save her," said one of the Kendo club members towards her fellow friends, all who nodded their heads as they began to draw out their shunai weapons and chase after the blonde-haired man. Feeling a sudden surge of foreboding, Naruto moved his left hand to open the nurse's door. Seeing as how it was unlocked, Naruto quickly brought Kyome with him inside before calling out, "Tarami-sensei! Kyome-san almost drowned in the pool. I managed to perform CPR, but I wanted you to check her yourself," shouted Naruto within the large medical bay room, drawing the attention of their school's private nurse, who stuck her golden-colored head out from one of the medical curtains that surrounded each and every bed. Reason they were there was now boys in the school, and when it's a literal 85 to 15% female to male ratio, it was mostly women who visited the nurse. Seeing the girl within the arms of the blonde-haired teen, the nurse quickly took over. Pushing up her thin glasses slightly, the woman waved them over to her spot. "Bring her over here, Uzumaki-kun. I just made a fresh bed," said Tarami as she watched the male nod his head and gently move the still shaking Kyome towards the bed. Walking through the curtain that was held open by the nurse, Naruto helped Kyome onto the bed in a sitting position. Seeing that she was now stable on the bed, Naruto then moved a hand towards Kyome's shoulders. "Okay Kyome, Tarami-sensei should be able to look after you for now. I'm going to go get yours in my bags now, so I need to know where yours are," asked Naruto with his still slightly quiet tone, moving out of the way so that the nurse could do some checkups quickly while they talked. However, while Kyome was pretty much out of it, she still managed to blush. "It's in the G-Girls locker room where it's supposed to be fine. My locker number is 32 and the code to my locker is 20-42-59 and 0. I would give you the key, but it's in my bag. What's in the locker so I'm trusting you and Naruto-san to get my bag," spoke Kyome in her soft voice as Tarami moved a small flashlight side to side in front of the girl's face. Nodding, Naruto began to walk out, only to feel someone holding his wrist. That someone being Tarami-sensei. "Yes, sensei?" asked Naruto with a slight tilt of the head, although the woman couldn't see that as she hadn't stopped her checkup on Kyome. "Make sure to not look through her bag, Uzumaki-kun. We don't want you to be naughty, right?" asked Tarami with a scary tone near the end of her rhetorical question, something which made Naruto feel shivers up his spine. "Why yes, sensei," replied Naruto as the nurse let go of his wrist. Feeling the clamped hand off his sore wrist, Naruto quickly moved to exit the nurse's room, only to feel the foreboding feeling once more. "Okay, so it's either something bad is going to happen when I walk outside or the nurse is going to kill me for something," thought Naruto as the foreboding feeling began to rise within the pit of his stomach. Moving a shaky hand towards the door's handle, Naruto swallowed a lump in his throat before opening the door and sticking his head out in both directions. Giving a thankful sigh, Naruto took a few steps out, before he heard the nurse's door slam shut. So Naruto-san heard a woman did you spoke a voice behind him, causing a bead of sweat to make its appearance onto his forehead. Not moving his head, Naruto began to walk forwards, pretending like he hadn't heard anyone spoke. You know I don't see how a dead last like you will make it later on. You're literally the only student who has a straight 50% record. Even the perverted trio get better marks than you. What's worse is that you also attacked another student. That's worse than the 3 perverts could ever do, shouted another student behind him. Hearing that, Naruto narrowed his eyes in slight sadness as he continued his walk towards the back entrance, intent on getting his and Kaiom's stuff. That was before he felt a wooden stick smack him over the head, causing him to fall onto the floor in pain. Shifting his head slightly towards who hit him, Naruto felt fear as a large chunk of the Kendo club stood over him, each member there currently holding a weapon with their 2 leaders, Murayama and Keitase, pointing their shunai towards him. Attack! Screeched the pink-haired girl Murayama along with Keitase, who soon began to lay waste to him with their shunai. However, unknown to any of the members, Naruto couldn't hear them after Murayama screamed. Hell, he couldn't hear or see anything other than a blonde-haired kid wearing an orange jumpsuit being beaten the fuck out of by a large group of girls with a pink-haired one leading the beating. Oh ouch. Kinda feel sorry for that guy. Wow, those women like to stomp. I wonder what they are stomping. Oh, may God have mercy on that unlucky bastard, thought Naruto as he watched, unknown to him, his younger past self getting his ass kicked for no apparent reason. It is indeed funny to watch. At times of great boredom, Naruto Uzumaki, however, I am glad to finally be able to reach you after all this time, spoke a wise-sounding voice which pierced through the darkness that surrounded Naruto once the little video disappeared. Moving his head around to find where the voice came from, Naruto shouted out. Where the hell am I? What's going on? Asked Naruto in fear. I mean, who wouldn't? He was just floating in pure darkness that spanned on for miles in all directions. The voice seemed to chuckle for a moment before becoming quiet once more. Naruto Uzumaki. I do not have much time to speak, as I feel the energy that is connecting us is finally breaking. When you return home, there will be a scroll on your counter. That scroll will only work for you. The reason for that I cannot say. However, know this: in that scroll, there is something that will change your future depending whether or not you open the scroll or not. But know this. You will feel slightly different once you open the scroll. I have trust that you will open the scroll. Naruto, now that's out of the way, I must say goodbye, Naruto Uzumaki. And with that, the mysterious voice disappeared. Naruto blinked out into the darkness with a blank look. Did someone put something in my drink during the day? Muttered Naruto to himself, before he suddenly felt like he was falling. Shutting his eyes in disbelief, Naruto hastily opened his eyes a few moments later, only to see a white ceiling. Blinking for a few seconds slowly, Naruto moved himself into a sitting position, grimacing as he felt a bit of pain surge through his ribs. Pushing himself off the ground, Naruto moved a hand to his rib for a few moments, before looking around. Wasn't the Kendo club here a few seconds ago? Muttered Naruto before he shook his head and jogged towards the indoor pool. Once entering the building, Naruto walked towards his bag, that he was happy to find left alone near the edge of the pool, before he flung it onto himself before walking towards the female changing room. However, just as he was going to walk in, he stopped himself. He could hear other girls within the room, meaning that if he was to walk in there, Case shiver. Standing at the entrance of the girls' locker room, Naruto knocked onto the door hastily. Waiting a few moments, Naruto was happily surprised to find that someone opened it, that someone being a second-year girl named Sari. Giving a small wave to the short-haired blonde girl, Naruto gave an embarrassed laugh. Sari-san. Tarami-sensei just asked me if any of the girls could get Kaiom-senpai's bag out of her locker for her since she is currently in the nurse's office, so if you could it would be great, spoke Naruto in an embarrassed tone, something which made the smaller girl blankly stare at him. Sorry Naruto-san, but I do not know what locker and combination code Kaiom-senpai uses, so I cannot get her bags, replied Sari with a slightly sorry tone. Giving a sigh, Naruto leaned onto the entrance wall. Kaiom-senpai told me her locker was number 32 and her combination password was 20-42-59 and 0. So can you please get her bags for me? I really want to go home now, but I don't want to leave before giving Kaiom-senpai her stuff back, spoke Naruto in a calm, bland tone towards Sari, who simply narrowed her eyes at him. However, she soon gave a sigh. Fine. One moment, Naruto-san, replied Sari as she closed the door. Within a few minutes, Sari once again walked out with a bag in hand. Here, Naruto-san. But so help me, if I find out you stole the bag, I'll tell Sana-sama, said Sari with a huff and glare, her arms under her quite decently large bust to help increase the intimidating image she so had going for her. Giving a nod, Naruto turned around, a small trail of blood beginning to fall from his nose as Sari hadn't noticed the towel she was wearing was slightly slipping down her bust. Giving a cheeky grin, Naruto quickly dashed out of the gym and back towards the nurse's room, where he found the nurse waiting with Kyome. Seeing Naruto walk through the door, Kyome gave a small smile as Naruto handed her bag back to her. "Thank you?" spoke the brunette as she held her bag towards her chest. "No problem," replied Naruto as he waved it off, before he turned around and gave an over-the-shoulder wave. "Well, hope you feel better, Kyome-san. Thanks for the help, Tarami-sensei," replied Naruto as he left through the door. Turning his head slightly, Naruto felt a twitch of pain coming from his neck slightly, before shrugging it off. With that, he began to walk home to his apartment. "I'm home," muttered Naruto as he closed the door behind him slowly as he didn't want to disturb his neighbors with the door being shut. Removing his shoes and placing them beside the door, Naruto walked into his living room and began his daily ritual, that being getting a bowl of instant ramen and turning on the small TV of his to watch some anime that was on. Slurping up his ramen at a slow rate and enjoying the taste, Naruto couldn't help but feel a nagging feeling within his head. It was like he was supposed to remember something. Shaking his head, Naruto stood up and walked behind the kitchen counter and dropped his now empty bowl of instant ramen into the small bin that was under the sink pipes within a cupboard. Clapping his hands and closing the cupboard, Naruto lifted his head up to watch the TV from his current position, watching as a dude named Hey, a contractor, which was a dude or girl who had a power which they can use, but along with the power they have, they also have a price to pay for each use. The main character, however, didn't seem like he had a price in the story. Pushing his hands off the kitchen table, Naruto began to walk around the table, intent on getting to his small couch where he could continue watching Darker Than Black, the current show, more comfortably. However, just as he was going to walk past the kitchen table, he caught sight of something that made him widen his eyes as he came across something that he didn't expect. A scroll. Naruto stared at the rolled-up piece of paper, his mind going back to earlier in the day as he remembered the dark void he found himself in. Naruto Uzumaki. I do not have much time to speak, as I feel the energy that is connecting us is finally breaking. When you return home, there will be a scroll on your counter. That scroll will only work for you. The reason for that, I cannot say. However, know this: in that scroll, there is something that will change your future depending whether or not you open the scroll or not. But know this: you will feel slightly different once you open the scroll. I have trust that you will open the scroll. Naruto, now that's out of the way, I must say goodbye. Naruto Uzumaki. No, that had to be a dream, right? No, not a dream. He didn't fall asleep between walking to and from the gym. Must be him daydreaming, right? It's just a stupid scroll, Naruto. Nothing's going to happen when I open it, spoke Naruto towards himself as he felt his hand move towards the scroll as if it had its own mind. Just as Naruto felt the texture of the scroll, he couldn't help but move his other hand to also hold one half of the scroll. Now clutching both edges of the scroll, Naruto slowly opened it up, and once it was open he saw a flash before seeing a deep blue pond in front of him. Moving his feet and standing above the pond, Naruto couldn't help but stare into his reflection for a few seconds, getting lost within the blue pond. Waiting a few more moments, Naruto watched as he moved a single hand towards the pond, and when he touched it, a warmth spread through his body before he was once again captured by the darkness that surrounded him. Why am I on the floor? Asked Naruto to himself as he opened his eyes to the unwelcome sight of wooden floor. Blinking the slight blurriness from his eyes, Naruto pushed himself off the ground, using the kitchen table to support him as he stood up. Raising his right hand up to rub his face, Naruto couldn't help but let out a yawn before stretching his right arm, his left currently keeping him balanced with the table. Covering up his yawn with his now free left hand, Naruto shook his left hand to quickly get the pins and needles out, before looking towards the kitchen table. Safe to say he was shocked when he came upon the sight of a book titled Academy Level. Reading the title a second time, Naruto couldn't help but glare at the book as he felt the room start to change into a blank darkness once more. Before long the book also vanished, and the only thing that came into view was a large building that was called the Shinobi Academy, something that seemed to ring a bell, so to speak, within Naruto's mind. However, before long the image disappeared, awarding Naruto the sight of his apartment once more, along with the fateful book on the counter. Narrowing his eyes at the book, Naruto couldn't help but just feel something pulling him towards it. Now it isn't the whole I feel something in my gut thing, but he could actually feel something flowing through each and every bone, muscle, vein and organ, and even then he could feel the thing within him not being blood, but something else, something more, he guessed. Raising a hand to his head, Naruto couldn't help but sigh. Just had to touch the scroll yesterday, didn't you, Naruto? So what if I thought it was a dream when I touched the scroll? You don't just randomly touch things, damn it. There's that stupid pull feeling again, muttered Naruto angrily as he removed his hand from his face before picking the book up and walking towards his small couch in his living room. Placing himself onto the old, but comfortable, couch, Naruto opened the first page, only to narrow his eyes at the message he saw written in the book. If you are reading this, Naruto, it means that you accepted the scroll and what comes from it, and because of that, I am proud of you for doing so. Now, while you may not understand some of the things I'm going to say, I need you to pay attention. Naruto stared blankly at the first paragraph before giving out a sigh. Sure, whatever, creepy book. I'm guessing the guy who talked to me before wrote this? Asked Naruto rhetorically as he gave himself a grin, before shaking his spiky blonde hair around and began to read the second paragraph. Now, while you do not know who you truly are, you will find out along your journey. Trust me as a sage. Before Naruto could read further, he once again felt the room disappear into darkness with a single image being created. That image had what looked like him, with slight changes being whisker marks and slightly shorter hair, standing in a frontal position glaring towards his direction while wearing a red with black flames hadori on top of a black and orange jacket and orange cargo pants, although he didn't know what to call the shoes, but they were also black. Taking another look towards the man's face, Naruto couldn't help but narrow his eyes at the orange pigments surrounding the toad-like eyes, something that seemed to irritate Naruto as if he remembered something about it. However, just as the image appeared, it disappeared, once more changing into Naruto's apartment with Naruto sitting down and book in hand. What the hell are those images? Hell, why the hell are they popping up? Muttered Naruto towards himself, before giving a sigh as he went back to reading. First off, when you begin, you will need to be focused. While I am instructing you through the material through quotes and messages, you cannot simply expect what's within this book to be easy. However, I have also made restrictions for your learning. That being, you must be proficient in all forms within each subject you shall learn. However, there will be more subjects added later on as it's a requirement in previous subjects to be able to begin. I have also taken the more evil subjects out. There are no need for them, as I hope you can understand. Nod from Naruto. Why would he like to read something evil? Hell, the way the message made it sound like if he did try learn it, he would be stuck forever on one area. Now, the restrictions I have placed upon each level, so to speak, are in ranks. Those being Academy. Another flash of the previous Shinobi Academy building. Genin. Naruto could only stare into two headband-like objects, one being a long black-clothed one and the other being a shorter blue-clothed one, both holding a metal plate that had a similar picture of a leaf, only with the center part of the leaf being a swirl right in the center of the cloth. Chunin. A puffy green jacket with a lot of extra pockets came to mind. Why? He hadn't had a slight clue, similar to the headbands. Jonin. Strangely enough, he didn't get another image. Shrugging, he continued on. Sannin. A quick flash of the similar blonde with orange pigments and toad-like eyes appeared in his mind for an instant. Along with a man who had long white spiky hair, he felt a massive pang of sadness hit him as he saw the image. He even had some tears building up in the corners of his eyes at the image of the man. And finally Kage. Naruto could only clutch his head with his right hand as images of 5 people flew through his head, each wearing a similar red triangle-like hat on their heads, all holding the kanji for fire on the front. He also couldn't explain the tear that went down his face when he saw the third man to appear, an old man with most of his hair gone, with the remaining hair being gray. The tear he felt that was going down his cheek was an expression of sorrow. Then another tear fell on the opposing cheek when the fourth man appeared, someone who was nearly a mirror image of himself, just with slightly noticeable changes, that being the slightly different jaw and slightly slanted eyes. The tear that he felt was a mix of sadness and joy, something that confused him as he didn't know how or why he felt the way he did. Finally, the fifth person, a woman, appeared. He then felt another pair of tears join the previous two. However, the emotion he felt was both of longing and joy, with sadness hidden beneath the longing. Raising a forearm to wipe the tears off his face, still confused why he felt those emotions, Naruto continued on reading. Each rank holds more requirements. However, the idea to progress is the same throughout the book. Become the master of your rank. If you are an academy student, you must master all that is given to progress to Genin. There are no shortcuts in skipping ranks. You will not be able to complete some of the tasks and skip. You must master all in each rank. Either the master of all or the master of none. The further you go into each rank, the more you will understand Naruto. To begin, move the energy you now feel within yourself into the book. It will release all that is required for you to begin. That being the academy rank. Train hard, Naruto. Achieve a level you wish you had before. I believe in you along with your family and friends, even when we are no longer with you. Become greater, Naruto. Naruto then looked at the bottom of the page and looked at the signature. H.O. Achieve a level you wish you had before. Have I done this before or something? And what's with the I believe in you along with your family and friends, even when we are no longer with you? What the hell does that mean? Does it mean that the person who wrote the book knows who my parents are, and what about friends? I don't know or have any? Gah. This is getting me a headache. But I gotta admit I am interested now, whoever you are, Mr. H.O, muttered Naruto as he stared at the initials once more with a narrowed gaze. Releasing a sigh, Naruto placed the book down onto his small coffee table and closed his eyes. Move the energy that's inside of me. Okay, I guess the new feeling I have within me is what he means, or is it a she? Never mind, Uzumaki. Focus. Feel the energy and move it into you. Hand. Which hand should I move it into? The left or right? Gah. What if I put the energy into the wrong hand and it explodes or something? Snap out of it, Naruto. Just move some energy into a hand. The left, good old righty, is a much needed hand. Okay, now place it on the book, muttered Naruto as he opened his eyes to the sight of his left hand barely millimeters from the book's first page. Well, here goes nothing, I guess, spoke Naruto in a slightly calm tone as he moved his hand and placed it firmly onto the book. His eyes slammed shut, expecting the worst. Poof. Did I just seriously hear a poof? Asked Naruto to himself as he slowly opened his eyes, only to come upon the sight of what appeared like a small mountain of books, all neatly stacked on top of each other. Moving his left hand from the original book that now sat in front of the mountain of others, Naruto slowly lifted his left hand to grab one of the top books. Getting a good grip on the book, he lifted it off the stack before moving it towards himself. When he read the title, he only tilted his head. The book title read, Chakra Crash Course. Blinking it over for a few moments, Naruto shrugged, thinking that the energy he felt's name was apparently chakra. Flipping the first page of the book, Naruto couldn't help but drop his jaw at what the diagrams and information explained to him about his apparent energy. Chakra is the energy that all living beings possess. However, while all living things possess chakra, as it is essentially life energy, only humans and summons, creatures that are more intelligent who also have been saturated with life chakra or nature chakra, allowing them to evolve to become either stronger or more advanced. Now, what is chakra? Chakra is the combination of both physical and spiritual energies which mix to create chakra. An image of a single white 2D man was shown with both physical and spiritual energies mixing within the center of the man. What can chakra do? Well, chakra can be used in many ways. However, it is mostly ninjas who use chakra to help them with their activities, an example being water walking and tree climbing along with jutsus. However, just because chakra is mainly used by ninjas doesn't mean that civilians cannot learn how to use chakra, only it's more common for ninjas to, unless there is a reason they cannot, mostly through a disease one might have. Moving on to training your chakra. Through the use of training, one can learn to control and expand their chakra amount. Why would someone need to expand and control their chakra? Easy, to perform more chakra-related actives. Why do we need to train to get expand chakra? Because it runs out. Do not worry, as it does return, but with a larger amount of chakra at your disposal, along with a good to control to minimize waste, you could be doing chakra requirement techniques all day long, which can be used in either strengthening your body, flinging around ninjutsu/genjutsu, coating your weapons to make them stronger, or even to use the esteemed art of fuinjutsu, or seals. Now, while this seems like only a few ways to use chakra, there are many more to come. Okay, so far it doesn't seem that bad, but what does it mean by expanding and controlling your chakra? How do you do it? And can anyone else use chakra apart from me? I kinda don't think so, even if the book makes it seem like everyone could, although I am curious as to what it means by strengthen your body along with the whole ninjutsu, genjutsu and fuinjutsu thing, thought Naruto as he continued reading. Now you are probably thinking, what's ninjutsu, genjutsu and fuinjutsu? And how do I expand and control my chakra? Well, first off, ninjutsu is the most common form of attack of a ninja. Ninjutsu are techniques that are created from the use of chakra. An example of ninjutsu attacks are the Uchiha clan's Katan, Great Fireball Jutsu, which is a jutsu created from shape and nature manipulation to create an attack that is in the shape of a ball, which is then sent towards the enemy, or it can be used as a flamethrower to hold back or stop jutsu. Did he just read that right? He could shoot fireballs with chakra? He was so going to learn that, but maybe in private. I mean, who would not call the police if they saw someone shooting random fireballs into the air? Next we have Genjutsu, the art of illusions. Through the use of chakra, a ninja is able to affect either someone else or their surroundings by changing what others see, smell, touch, taste, or hear. How do they do this? Through sending chakra through either the person or intended area. It is also known that it's easier to use genjutsu on a single person rather than an area, which is only recommended if 1. You have decently large chakra, and 2. Very good chakra control. It is also important for genjutsu users to have a decent imagination, as for most who don't, will never be able to create their own genjutsus. Moving on to Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing. Fuinjutsu is different from both genjutsu and ninjutsu. Whereas with ninjutsu and genjutsu are created through strictly their chakra, Fuinjutsu is created through both chakra and kanji. Now, while Fuinjutsu might seem a bit dull in the beginning, know this, it's truly the only ninja still that is limitless. Whereas with ninjutsu and genjutsu there is a point that you cannot pass, there isn't a point that you can stop with Fuinjutsu. An example that can be achieved through Fuinjutsu is instant teleportation, something created and used by both Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage, and Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. Fuinjutsu also is something that can overcome each and every form of attack or disadvantage. For instance, originally, Fuinjutsu users need to use kanji to create their Fuinjutsu with ink on a paper. However, when one reaches the rank of a seal master, the master is one who can create seals through that of a touch, using only their chakra to create the seal. Now that doesn't say that people who aren't masters cannot do that, but a master is one who can do it for all their Fuinjutsu, reason being they can create all the theory of the kanji within a split second, which they then create within any body part, usually the hands or feet, which they then can place with a simple touch. An example would be someone who knows the kanji for the explosion seals could place the kanji needed for the technique with a place of his hand, which can then be activated at a moment's notice. However, be warned, Fuinjutsu is one of the hardest subjects to grasp. An exception to this was the Uzumaki clan members, who seemed to have a natural skill to Fuinjutsu. He could teleport if he got that good in Fuinjutsu? All with beginning with a brush, some ink, and a piece of paper and knowledge? Fucker, he was going to learn the shit out of it. What if he created a seal that allowed him to fly? Or go invisible? Or freeze time? Okay, the last one would be stupidly harder than the rest, but still. Now there are many more things chakra can be used and created for. An example would be for Iryo Ninjutsu, which is used to heal others or oneself of damage. However, Iryo Ninjutsu, requires very precise chakra control to do. Or even Kekai Ninjutsu, which is simply barrier techniques which can be used to trap, protect, or even hold your enemies. He could heal himself? Or even make someone trapped? He sure as hell was lucky he wasn't a killer. The guy would be a fucking god if he could even do a little bit of what he just read. Now, a good way to build up chakra within oneself is to move your physical and spiritual energy into a tight sphere and with the image of yin and yang, one being physical and the other being spiritual, then moving the sphere in the direction of your hair or what naturally feels right. This won't increase your control or expand your reserves, but it does bring forth you chakra for those who are beginners or for those who want to raise their chakra up at a faster rate than the usual self-charge. Normally this is done before attempting to learn chakra control, reason being so that people know what they require to complete the exercise. Looking at the image that had a man holding a hand sign with a picture of a blue and red ball, split into two separate ones circling around each other in a single direction, Naruto nodded as he closed the book before placing it beside the mountain of other books. Moving his head up to stare at the ceiling, Naruto couldn't let a sigh go through his lips before a massive ass grin appeared on his face. "This is so fucking cool!" shouted Naruto as he quickly bounced around the room he was in. I mean, who wouldn't be this excited? You just learned that you could shoot fucking fireballs and teleport. And then you could also heal things and all. I mean, you could be the best doctor without even knowing how to do proper surgery. Unless that's a requirement, but still. Finishing his little parade, the blonde teen sat down on his couch and grabbed the next book with glee before his alarm in the bedroom went off. Blinking, Naruto stood up with the book he grabbed and entered his bedroom, which was somewhat small, before pressing the off button on the small alarm. However, when he saw the time on it, he widened his eyes. 7:41 a.m. The only time his alarm went off early in the morning was if he had school. Oh damn it. He couldn't read until after school. No wait. He had work since it was Friday. Suddenly Naruto stopped his little bout of depression. What if I just take a few books with me to school? I always manage to get by without even paying attention or studying, so what would be different? Apart from reading, that is. Chuckled Naruto to himself as he walked towards his small closet and grabbed his regular attire, that being the required Ko Academy black blazer and dress pants. He also grabbed his orange t-shirt that he usually had underneath his blazer. However, before Naruto began to place his uniform on, he realized he still had his yesterday's set on. Looking towards the time, which was now 7:43 a.m., he realized he had plenty of time to have a shower and get dressed. Grabbing his fresh pair of cloths and walking towards his small bathroom, Naruto couldn't help but release a sigh as he quickly chucked his dirty cloths into the small tub in the corner of the room before entering his shower, relishing the feeling of the hot water going through his hair and past his body. The warm water was always welcome in Naruto's books. Enjoying his shower a bit longer than he normally did, the blonde turned the taps off and walked out of the shower and began to dry himself with a towel. Making sure to get his body dry, the blonde went to put on his cloths only to smack his face in irritation, reason being he forgot to grab a clean set of underwear. Growling to himself, the blonde wrapped a towel around his waist. Even if he lived alone, he wasn't walking out naked, more or less just for knowing that you don't walk around naked. However, as soon as he opened his door, the blonde felt a shiver go up his spine as the colder air seeped into his skin. Quickly bolting to his closet and grabbing a set of boxers, the blonde quickly threw on his school attire, intent on stopping the cold air from touching his skin. Getting his blazer on, the blonde gave a satisfied sigh of approval as his body began to warm up, making the blonde forget about the distinct touch of cold air a few moments ago. Looking once more towards his clock, the blonde gave a small sigh of relief as he noticed that his shower wasn't longer than 10 or so minutes, bringing the time up to 7:53 a.m. Exiting his bedroom and entering his living room, the blonde quickly found his bag before moving it towards the couch before walking away to grab some breakfast, that being some simple toast and a batch of cooked eggs. Finishing the cooking part of his breakfast, the teen brought his plate of toast and eggs to his couch, making sure not to dirty the books by accidentally dropping an egg on them. Sitting on his couch, the blonde began to look through the books. Okay. I'm guessing I'm going to need to understand and apply each bit of knowledge from these books to be able to advance in rank. But I guess I should go with things that I can do in school. I doubt I could practice ninjutsu, especially without learning chakra control. Does the books have something on expanding my chakra? No, it probably doesn't. I guess you would expand your chakra through chakra control and physical and spiritual training, I guess. As it said, chakra is a mix of spiritual and physical energy, so I might as well grab the book on chakra control. Probably the best to start off with. I really should only take 3 or 4 books, just to make sure I don't get over my head. Okay, so far I got chakra control 101. Just 2 or 3 more, thought Naruto as he stared at the large amount of choices placed upon the table with a narrowed stare and gaze. I guess I'll grab the Fuinjutsu level 1 book as my second one. I mean, there is a level 2 as well, but both are incredibly large. It would most likely be that you need to get a good grasp on the lower level to advance to the upper level. So bringing the level 2 would be pointless. There is a book on body conditioning/training there. That could be useful for the physical part of my chakra, but what about spiritual? Maybe the book of meditation? No, it seems to be a smaller book, so it won't take long to read, damn it. What else can I bring? Actually, I do have 5 periods, so why don't I bring 5 books? Never mind, I should read the Fuinjutsu level 1 book for 2 periods. It is the largest one I currently have out of my selected 3. Oh, Basics of Nature Transformation? Maybe that would be wise to pick. I mean, if you can shoot fireballs with ninjutsu, I'm guessing it's reliant on nature transformation. So I guess the whole learning the basics would help. Finished Naruto. Nodding his head at the choices, the blonde carefully placed the 4 books inside of his bag, decently large blue with white streaks bag. Shoving his breakfast quickly into his mouth and happy with his choices, the blonde picked up his bag and hefted it up onto his back. Just as he grabbed his wallet and apartment keys from his kitchen table, he suddenly stopped and shifted his eyes to the books taking over his coffee table. Should I really leave them out in the open? Muttered Naruto as he simply stared at the books for a moment, unsure as to either leave the books out in the open or place them somewhere less noticeable. Turning back around, the blonde instantly began to transport his books to his room, placing them under his small desk that he usually had collecting dust from without use. Now if he was good enough at Fuinjutsu, he might actually use the thing. God knows that he didn't use it for homework. Happy with his book's new location, the blonde exited the apartment, making sure to take a quick look at the clock, showing 8:07 a.m., meaning he had about a good half hour to walk to school. Walking out of his apartment and locking it, the blonde went down the hall and pressed the elevator button, reason being he was only on the 3rd floor but couldn't be bothered going down the stairs. Hearing the ping of the elevator door opening, the blonde walked inside the elevator and pressed the ground floor button. Seeing as he was the only one inside the elevator, Naruto couldn't help but close his eyes for a moment, taking the time to process all that he learned a few moments ago. Hearing the ping once more, the teen opened his eyes, his cerulean blue eyes shining with excitement as he walked out of the elevator and out of the lobby and into the street. Raising his arm above his head to block out a bit of the light, Naruto slowly adjusted to the bright light before lowering his hand, his smile still planted upon his face as he walked around the apartment building, escaping the sound of loud cars going by as the front of the apartment complex was on a busy road, while behind the apartment complex was a road that led directly towards Ko Academy. Sure, it was like a good 20 to 25-minute walk, but as long as he got there he was good. Walking down the long road with hands in his pockets, Naruto couldn't hide the excited smile that was stuck onto his face as he walked towards Ko. I mean, the things he read was that of TV shows, like Darker Than Black and stuff. I mean, in the show people had abilities and cool fighting, but they had to pay a price to use their abilities after each use. Him? He just had to get stronger, and he basically could do, eventually, things that scientists tried to create for years, and just imagine if he could fly. Oh, so much money saved for holidays. Chuckling to himself over the last thought, Naruto couldn't help but stare up towards the blue sky, thinking back onto one of the first things that caught his attention to Chakra Crash Course. Strengthening your body. Did that mean he could make his body like super strong or fast? Wait, could he use the amount of chakra to try now? Giving an evil grin, Naruto slipped off one strap of his bag. Seeing as it was stupidly uncomfortable to run with both straps on, he began to churn his chakra into one direction before moving it towards his legs. Feeling his energy saturating his legs, the blonde gave a grin before lifting a single leg and moving it forward, amazed at how light his leg felt at that moment. Placing his foot down, he began to move his next one, only to widen his eyes when he moved as if he was doing a slow jog. Did his legs really have that much propelling strength from being saturated with chakra? The large grin on Naruto's face easily told anyone that he was going to do something, that something being getting into a running start. 3 called out Naruto as he saturated his entire body with chakra, not noticing his reserves begin to slowly start to deplete. 2 cue the larger grin. 1 the adrenaline started to pump through his body. Go! Shouted Naruto mentally, pushing from his runner's starting position and beginning to run at full speed. It was amazing. The feeling of his chakra moving through his body, the feeling of the wind wiping by his face as he ran at the speed of a car. He felt amazing. He felt incredible. And he felt like something else. Noticing how people who saw him give open jaw drops, Naruto couldn't help but increase his grin. Sure, it wasn't all that smart running out in the open this fast, but still. It was just testing it, he wasn't going to do it again probably. However, while on his running high, he didn't notice himself starting to lose his chakra as it was running out. And before he knew it, he began running at his own original pace, that being a decently fast student. Coming to a stop, the blonde could be seen gasping and wheezing like he had just ran over 20 marathons back to back. Using his knees to support his arms, the blonde drew deep breaths in at a slow rate. His body began to sweat as he began to cool down from his run. What the hell is that the only amount an academy student begins with? That was ha 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 and nothing but then again ha I did just ha start muttered Naruto out loud as he slowly began to stand and start walking at a normal rate, although, he did notice that the school was only at most a few minutes away, maybe 3 or 5 did he just skip or cut out like 17 to 20 minutes of his normal walk in the span of seconds. Okay, how much chakra would he have at Kage rank? Enough to run for days on end? Shaking his head from the thoughts, no point in thinking of that since he would eventually reach it after all, the blonde continued to walk past the large gates of Ko Academy. The large brown brick walls that surrounded the school were as always perfect and not damaged the slightest, even after a few vandalism attacks. Wiping his brow with his forearm, Naruto quickly stretched his back, making sure to get a few kinks out from his run. You what? Screamed a woman not too far from his position, taking a curious look, as did many other students that were there. Naruto began to walk towards the scream, only to come upon the sight of Kion pointing and yelling at the 2 leaders of the kendo club, that being Murayama and Kates. Standing by with his arms crossed, Naruto couldn't help but listen in. He was a high school student after all. You attacked him because you thought that he hurt me? Why on earth would he take me to the nurse's office if he was the cause of injury? Wouldn't he run so he wasn't in trouble? But not only that, you and your club actually attacked him when he didn't deserve it? Sure, he looks like a delinquent to those who only look at what's on the surface, me being one of them, but he's really nice. How could you think attacking him was good? You and your club should apologize to him for the attack you all did. Understand? Asked Kion with her arms crossed under her bust and her eyes narrowed, which seemed to stand out more with her long brown drill-like hair framing her face and her emerald-colored eyes. The 2 girls lowered their heads and muttered a quick hi before walking towards their club and talking to them, explaining what they were just told. Well, that was a bit boring. Spoke Naruto out loud in a mumble as he uncrossed his arms, He was shocked when he noticed that Kyom snapped her head towards him at such a fast rate after he spoke, something which he was sure no one else had heard if anything. Naruto? Spoke Kyom out loud quietly, something that drew the attention of others as they were beginning to leave. Tilting his head slightly, Naruto couldn't help but nod. Yeah? Spoke Naruto in a slow tone, confused as what she wanted. He did kind of expect to be ignored after yesterday. I mean, all he did was help the girl and that was it. Before he realized it, he was caught in a bone-crushing hug. Naruto, I am so sorry for what the Kendo Club did to you. Even after you saved me from drowning. Spoke Kyom in a sad tone, something that made everyone in the surrounding area blink. The delinquent saved Kyom-senpai from drowning? Giving an awkward chuckle and pat on the back, Naruto couldn't help but ask what the Kendo Club did to him. Ano, Kyom-san. Chan if you want. Spoke Kyom, moving her head up slightly as she gave the blonde a smile. You deserve the privilege of speaking to me in a familiar tone. You did save my life after all. Finished Kyom with her smile as she placed her head back onto Naruto's shoulders, who simply blinked before gaining a smile. Thanks Kyom-chan, but what do you mean about the Kendo Club attacking me? I don't remember what happened after I walked out of the nurse's office. I kinda thought I daydreamed for a bit. Stated Naruto as he raised a hand to scratch his cheek as he tried to remember if the Kendo Club did hit him, but nothing came up. For some reason, that seemed to make Kyom hug even tighter, making the blonde's back start to creak slightly in agony. Hey, Kyom-chan, kinda need my spine to not be broken, can't breathe now. Seeing a light, spoke Naruto in a raspy voice before he predominantly passed out for a few seconds, something Kyom noticed when his head fell down onto her own brown hair. Giving a small blush in embarrassment, the brunette loosened her grip slightly, something which seemed to revive the blonde as he snapped his head up near instantly before looking around. I'm alive? Muttered Naruto as he looked down slightly to Kyom, who seemed to blush in embarrassment. A quick sorry escaped the brunette's lips before she let go of the hug and walked towards the Kendo Club with her hands on her hips. You gave him amnesia! Screamed the woman, something that made the entire Kendo Club shit themselves as their senpai gave them a glare. Seeing this, Naruto quickly walked up to Kyom and placed a hand on her shoulder. Calm down, Kyom-chan. I'm sure they didn't do anything bad to get your anger. But the way you were talking to them indicates that they attacked me after I left to get your bag. Muttered Naruto near the end as he scratched his chin for a moment, before shaking his head and looking towards the Kendo Club with a small smile. I'm really sorry for whatever I did to cause you to attack me, but I'm sure you had a good reason, or more probably thought I did something I shouldn't have. Now I am going to be the better man person here and not scream at you or anything like that. Although I would like an apology instead. Maybe a lesson or two in your Kendo Club would be nice, but that's if you allow it. Said Naruto with his smile still in place, as he rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Cue pure silence. No one moved or spoke a single word. Hell, even everyone's breath seemed that much quieter, something that freaked the hell out of him as he stood in the silent area. See, can you repeat that? Asked Murayama in a shocked tone. Seeing no reason not to, Naruto shrugged his shoulders. If you could give me an apology, and if possible 1 or 2 lessons in your club, I would be very grateful, said Naruto with a tilted head. The clearing was still silent even after he said that. Why, you're not going to hurt us or get even? Asked Kate with a small edge of fear in her tone. Kate's sweat dropped behind Naruto's head. Okay, what does being a bit tall and blonde mean that I'm going to hurt you? Look, if you want me to specify it, fine. I, Naruto Uzumaki, swear on my life and heart that I will not hurt you or any of the Kendo Club for attacking me. Spoke Naruto in a clear tone. His sweat dropped increased when he saw everyone begin to pinch their elbows as if they were in a dream. Hell, the only one not doing that was Kyom, but she seemed to be occupied with staring at him with her jaw dropped. As sorry. Spoke Kate and Murayama together in perfect sync, soon followed by their club members who also apologized. Seeming them apologies, the blonde waved them off. Apology accepted, replied Naruto with a smile, something that caused a good chunk of the girls there to blush. Who knew that all you had to do to make people like you was be nice to everyone? Well, mostly to the girls anyway. Hearing the morning bell ring, Naruto gave a small wave to the Kendo Club and Kyom before he began to walk off, only to stop as both Kate and Murayama grabbed his left sleeve. We would be welcome if you came to practice with us if you want, Naruto, said both Kate and Murayama in a shy tone, something that just made Naruto mutter a quiet cute. Both seemed to hear him as they blushed slightly before he nodded his head. Thanks for allowing me the privilege. I might appear later in the week as I wanted to practice learning how to use a bakken, I guess, muttered Naruto, real reason being he saw a book titled Kenjutsu for Beginners. Probably something he would need to learn. Then there was also Bukijutsu, or weapon techniques. Man, the genin thing must have even more things to learn, and that was just a quick look he had as he was placing his books in his room. Giving an eep, the two kendo girls went back to their group before leaving for class. However, just as Naruto was going to once again attempt to go to his homeroom class, he was wrapped up in a backwards hug from Kyome once more. Once again, Naruto-kun, thank you so much for saving my life. I may have been too shocked at nearly drowning the day before, but you are a hero to me. Thank you? With that, Kyome stood up a bit taller and planted a soft kiss to Naruto's cheek, something that set his face on fire as a blush spread along his face. However, it soon went away when he heard every male that was around him speak loudly how he was wooing Kyome to become his. Giving a sigh and a small chuckle, Naruto turned himself around and gave the slightly shorter woman a hug before ruffling her hair slightly. It wasn't a problem, Kyome-chan. I would do it again if I have to, spoke Naruto with a smile, before his face gained a cheeky expression as he leaned down slightly. Even if I have to give up my first kiss again, muttered Naruto quietly, causing Kyome to blush a good shade of red before walking off, sending Naruto a slight look as she touched her lips in shock. Giving a larger grin, the blonde-haired teen left to go to his homeroom, only to cry slightly when he was given a detention for being late a minute. His tears increased when a girl who was watching his encounter with Kyome and the kendo club was not given a punishment for being late. Silence, pure unadulterated silence, rang throughout the decently large classroom. What could be the cause of such silence? Was it killers within the room? Was it raining meteorites outside? No. It was much worse. Naruto Uzumaki was reading. Many within the classroom began to stare outside, waiting for the gates of hell to split open and suck them in. Students began to pray to the Lord, quietly muttering prayers for them to live through the experience that was sure to come. Alas, Naruto was oblivious as he read his Chakra Control 101 book, his eyes shooting to and from one line after the other as they dissected the page. Then, the students truly thought the apocalypse was approaching as Naruto did one thing. That thing was taking notes. "We're all going to die," screamed one of the male students as he picked up his desk, preparing to throw it through the window in an attempt to leave the room, completely ignoring the wide-open classroom door near the front. "Enough!" screamed the teacher, making all the students snap their heads towards him in fright and panic as they didn't want the righteous ruler of truth smacking their heads anytime soon. Giving out a sigh, the teacher turned his head to the student who had caused this mess, only to gain a small eye twitch as the blonde student continued reading without even a glance towards him. Turning his eyes back towards his classroom, the teacher began to wave his hands slightly. Now. It isn't the end of the world if Naruto-san here is reading. However, as I am too shocked at the attention Naruto-san is giving that book of his. This is a classroom, however, and inside of a classroom we learn even if it's the wrong subject, Naruto-san, but it's still learning. However, that said, Naruto Uzumaki, may you please read what is needed for today's lesson, not your little book there?" asked the teacher as he once again shifted his gaze towards the blonde, who simply waved at him. "I'll do it eventually, sensei," replied the blonde with a grin that was hidden behind the book he was reading. Hearing that, the teacher scratched his brown flat hair with a sigh before continuing on his lesson, noticing that his students began to slowly calm down as the lesson progressed without a hint of danger appearing, although a good chunk of the students did send Naruto a short stare before returning back to their own work. Sooner than later, the bell went, signifying that the period had ended. Snapping his book shut, the blonde-haired Uzumaki opened his bag and placed his chakra book inside the bag before zipping it up and slinging it onto his back. Standing up and pushing his chair in, the blonde began to walk out of the room, only to feel his teacher's hand clamp onto his shoulder. Tilting his head slightly, Naruto's cerulean blue eyes stared into his teacher's hazelnut-colored eyes with curiosity, reason being he never had a teacher stop him from leaving the classroom before. "Naruto-san, while I know that I had given you detention this morning, due to good behavior I have decided to remove it. So your lunch is yours. That is all," finished the teacher as he removed his hand from the blonde's shoulder before returning to his seat behind his desk. Giving the man a smile and thumbs up, the blonde walked out of the classroom, silently squealing at the prospect of not having detention at lunch. Looking up towards the ceiling for a moment, Naruto released a sigh of relief before bringing his head back down, intent on going down the stairs towards the oval, his second period being sport. Before he knew it, however, he felt someone collide with his back. Blinking, the blonde turned his head around slightly, coming to the sight of one of the school's public enemy number one, and one of the perverted trio, Issei Haida. Scratching his head slightly, Naruto watched as Issei rolled around the ground holding his nose as he ran straight into Naruto after turning a corner at a fast pace, reason being? "Get the pervert!" screamed a multitude of voices, some of which he already knew of since he had heard them only this morning. Looking towards the downed pervert for a final time, Naruto couldn't help but think of his options. Save the pervert and probably be classified as a pervert who wanted to join the perverted trio. Or option B. Hand the pervert to the Kendo Club members and gain both a slightly better reputation with the Kendo Club and a possible chance to get more lessons with them if lucky enough. The choice was easy. Gripping the white collar of the pervert's shirt, Naruto held the pervert in position as he heard the rapid stomps of raging females coming closer. Issei seemed to realize this as well as he seemed to rapidly heal before staring towards Naruto with pleading eyes. "Please release me, Blondie-san. I beg you," begged Issei with tears trailing down his eyes as he stared up to Naruto, who gave out a sigh. "Sorry, but I would rather not die. Besides, I'm sure you're used to the hits anyway," replied Naruto as he came to the sight of the Kendo Club girls all holding their shisha with evil grins. That was until they came upon the sight of Naruto where they got a slight expression of fear that went away when Naruto walked up to them and dropped Issei at their feet. Giving a slight wave, Naruto turned and continued on his way, wincing as he heard the screams of Issei Haida rang throughout the hallway. He also noticed that a lot of girls were giggling while the screams echoed. Giving a small shudder from the thought, Naruto walked down the pearly white stairs and out towards the back entrance of the main building, this time, however, walking past the massive gym and into the small change rooms near the corner of the large green oval. Pushing the blue male changing room door and entering one of the male room stalls, Naruto couldn't help but give a small sigh as he changed his black blazer and orange shirt for a Co-Academy sport shirt and his long black dress pants a pair of blue sport shorts. Naruto completed his new attire with the changing of his brown dress shoes into a regular pair of blue with white striped sneakers. Opening his stall and walking out, Naruto took in the silence of the room to stretch and sigh. "You know, I really didn't notice the fact that I barely have any other dudes in my class. Oh well, better than having a shit ton of dudes around," muttered Naruto, as he stared into the one-way mirror in front of a sink. Rubbing a bit of his cheek for a moment, the blonde opened one of the few lockers near the corner of the room and placed his bag inside, making sure to lock the locker before exiting the change room. Looking across from the oval and spotting his teacher, along with a few other female students around her, Naruto couldn't help but jog over. He also couldn't help but glance at other female students who also jogged over, reason for his staring being that each girl in his class seemed to have large and great asses. Plopping himself down onto the grass, Naruto could help but dart his eyes around as females began to seat themselves down onto the grass in a similar way that he did. He wouldn't complain, but why did it seem that nearly every chick he saw have large bounds from their bust from simple things like walking or sitting? Seeing as how the teacher remained silent as she was waiting for the rest of the students, Naruto decided to read the training/conditioning book he gained from the scroll, seeing as how it was a novel-sized book that he could fit in his pocket. Like his previous class, everyone seemed to think that the end of the world was approaching because of him reading a book. However, due to the fact that this was a sport class, Naruto would have thought that the image of him reading wouldn't mean anything. Nope, completely wrong. He shared classes with each and every girl in his current sport class. Snapping out of her slight shock, the teacher quickly cleared her throat, drawing in the attention of the class as she crossed her arms under her bust. "Okay class, today I have decided that I want to see how our residential fighters are going with their training for their separate tournaments, whether they be kickboxing, Muay Thai or Judo. However, for those who do not do any of the current activities, Q glanced at pretty much the only 5 or so boys in the class. I would like it if you would do some laps around the oval," said the teacher as she turned towards the girls, who seemed to all smirk and smile in joy at being able to train. Can I join the girls and practice fighting against them, Sesame-sensei?" asked Naruto with a sheepish expression as he scratched the back of his head. Now, why would he ask to fight girls? Simple. In this school, if a female specialized in something, they are head and shoulders above the rest. It was like a divine rule that all females in Co-Academy must be perfect in one area. It also helps that some of the females in the group beat full-grown men in other out-of-school tournaments overseas. Raising an eyebrow at the blonde-haired teen, the teacher gave him a slight sigh. "Good to see you were paying attention, Naruto-san, but are you sure? I mean, you can if you want, but most of the girls who are here practice some form of fighting and are quite good at it as well. I'm sure you had seen some of them in tournaments overseas," replied the teacher, only seeing Naruto nod after her small speech. Giving a sigh, she nodded her head as the rest of the boys in her class began to go for laps, all of them thinking the blonde-haired Uzumaki had a death wish for wanting to fight against some of the best fighters in their school. Not that Naruto noticed them, of course, as his eyes went back towards his book, waiting patiently for his turn. He didn't have to wait all that long. Hitami Kayuki vs. Naruto Uzumaki, called out the teacher, mentally wincing as one of the stronger girls of the group walked into the small ring they had created with a grin held onto her face. Snapping his book shut and placing it within his pant pocket, the blonde-haired Uzumaki stood and stretched his back before walking towards the center of the ring, staring towards the green long-haired girl with a small smile. However, before he knew it, he watched as an image of him stood against the stranger. However, both he and the stranger had held both their pointed finger and middle finger towards each other before hooking them together. Before he realized it, Naruto watched with widened eyes as the green-haired girl shot forwards with a right hook, something that would have probably sent him crashing into the ground had he not dodged to the right, narrowly missing the right hook. And as if his body moved on its own, Naruto quickly grabbed the right hook with his own left hand and pulled the girl's arm wider than her original punch, something that unbalanced her as both her footing and body slipped from her original stance. Seeing the opportunity now, the blonde quickly threw his right hand out towards the woman's stomach, using it to lift her up slightly before using the girl's already caught hand to sling her over his shoulder and out of the ring, something that seemed to shock Hitami as she landed on her backside with a small bounce as she stared out towards the oval with a blank tone. "Winner, Naruto Uzumaki," spoke Sesame in a slightly shocked tone as she stared towards the blonde as he simply pat himself down with some expression of shock placed upon his face before he exited the ring. "Sesame-sensei, can I please fight Naruto-san? I would like to see his skills against my own," spoke a voice to her left in a calm tone. Turning her head, Sesame couldn't help but freeze slightly as Rukia Diratsi stood to her left with her light brown hair blowing slightly, making her cold blue eyes stand out as she stared towards her sensei. Giving a slight cough, Sesame tried to regain her thoughts under control before nodding slightly. "Very well, Rukia-san. If Naruto accepts, we can have the match right now. So what do you say, Naruto-san?" asked Sesame as she looked towards Naruto, who had just been slightly staring at Rukia with that of a slightly scared expression, something which was justified as Rukia had earned a title after winning so many tournaments. That title had been the manslaughterer, as she defeated every man she ever battled. Normally each man had a broken bone after each fight. Naruto could help but feel a shiver go down his spine as Rukia's cold blue eyes met his own cerulean blue ones. "I don't think that's a good idea, Sesame-sensei. I mean, I did just." Naruto paused his explanation of why he didn't think this was a good idea. Reason being for his sudden stop was Rukia's expression of anger that projected through her eyes, and with each passing second the anger increased. Never mind, sensei. I'll be happy to fight against Rukia-san. I would love to have a chance at battling such a goddess as herself," spoke Naruto all too quickly as he hoped his goddess comment would make the hate Rukia now held for him shorten a small bit. It done the opposite by her now openly glaring at him. Muttering a quick crap and walking into the small ring, Naruto couldn't help but feel an even larger shiver make its way down his spine as his teacher signified the match to begin, and before he knew it, he had taken a punch to the jaw, sending him towards the ground where he quickly spanned slightly, and used his hands to hold himself up off the ground. Hearing the sound of footsteps, the blonde quickly took a small look before sending his legs out towards Rukia, one of his legs hitting her jaw, stunning her for a moment before he sent another foot towards her unprotected stomach, where he then twisted himself into a crouching position before pushing off the ground, aiming a right hook towards the girl's chin, only to widen his eyes in shock as she tilted her head backwards slightly before grabbing the overextended arm of Naruto's before she then brought the arm into an awkward position behind the blonde's back. Snap! Fuyuyuyukyuk! Screamed Naruto as Rukia snapped his arm from her hold. Holding his now broken forearm towards his chest, the blonde quickly bit the inside of his lips to prevent himself from screaming in agony as he cradled his broken bone. Seeing this, the teacher sprang into action. Quickly telling a student to get the nurse, the teacher quickly ran towards the girls' change rooms in an attempt to grab the small medical box that sat within the room. However, while the teacher was going to get the medical box, the students all surrounded the blonde as he shut his eyes in agony. "Sorry," spoke Rukia with a calm blank tone, but because Naruto had his eyes snapped shut, he hadn't noticed the look of pleasure sitting upon Rukia's face as she stared down towards the blonde. Hearing that, Naruto opened his eyes slightly, only to narrow them as he saw the sight of Rukia's face and expression. Growling to himself, the blonde slowly stood up and began to walk towards the male change room, all the while ignoring the laughter of some other males who had just seen him get taken down by a girl in only a minute. However, to his slight surprise, a few of the girls were talking about how they felt sorry for him. Shaking his head slightly as he held his arm, his adrenaline numbing his arm's pain, the blonde quickly pushed himself past the boys' change room door before he made a beeline straight towards his locker. Using his left arm to open the locker, all the while holding back some tears as he held his broken, from what he felt, arm. Opening his locker, the blonde quickly grabbed the bag and walked out, going the opposite direction from the school and leaving through the back. By the time Sesame-sensei arrived, Naruto had left without anyone realizing that he left the change rooms. Apartment. Gah! My fucking arm! Shouted Naruto as he accidentally nudged the edge of his front door frame before entering his apartment. Throwing his bag into his living room, the blonde quickly slammed his front door shut, making sure to lock it before moving towards his bathroom, intent on making a bracer for his forearm with the medical supplies behind his mirror. Opening his door to get in, Naruto quickly moved towards the mirror and opened it up with his left hand, all the while making sure that his right hand was nowhere near anything other than air. Grabbing the small box that had medical written on the top in a clear white color, the blonde shut his mirror and walked out of the room, not bothering to close his bathroom door as he sat on his small couch, using his coffee table to set up his bracer for his arm as he searched through his small medical box. Placing 2 sturdy pieces of wood onto the table along with a large amount of wrapping bandages, the blonde slowly moved his right arm onto one of the wooden bracers before wincing as he used his left to place the other on top. Now having the pieces of wood on his forearm, Naruto began to slowly wrap the bandages around his wrist before going up, making sure that his bandages weren't being placed on wrong as he narrowed his eyes in concentration. Tugging the final bit of bandage around his arm, Naruto quickly got some tape before wrapping it from his wrist to his elbow, just to make sure that his bracer wouldn't become loose through movement. Giving out a huff, Naruto closed his eyes as he lifted his right arm off the table. Luckily enough for him, he didn't feel either pain or strain as he moved his arm slightly. Giving a small sigh of relief, Naruto began to push himself off his couch with his left hand, only to stumble and fall onto his back with his eyes slowly shutting before falling asleep with his broken right arm laying gently on the brown coffee table next to him. But before Naruto fell asleep, his last cohesive thought was fucking hell. Before he passed out. Knock, knock, knock. 2 eyes suddenly snapped open, showing blue cerulean eyes staring blankly towards his slightly gray-colored ceiling. Pushing himself up, the blonde quickly got off his couch, muttering a quick "I'm coming" out loud as he attempted to open his apartment door, only to glare towards the lock near the right corner of the door. Lifting his right hand and opening it, the blonde quickly opened the door with his left. Naruto blinked as he came upon the sight of his school nurse Tommy standing at the door with a look of worry written upon her face as she stared at him. Naruto-kun. How are you? Is your arm okay? Well, not okay, but better than yesterday. Did you see a doctor to diagnose your injury? Did they tell you if it's a simple fracture or break? Asked Tommy in a quick tone as she walked into the blonde's apartment and dragged him over to his small couch before propping both Naruto and herself down onto the table where she then began to study his right arm. Naruto just blinked for a moment before staring down towards his arm with that of an expression of shock before he turned his head to look towards his sensei/school nurse. Ano, going from your questions in order. I am fine, my arm feels weird, in a good way, and it is defiantly better than yesterday if I remember. No, I didn't see a doctor, I passed out only a few moments after from making this bracer for my arm, and because a doctor didn't check my arm, I cannot answer your final 2 questions, but just a quick question: why are you here, Tarami-sensei? Shouldn't you be at school in case someone hurts themselves? Asked Naruto with a slight tilt of his head, only to watch as Tommy shook her head slightly, pushing up her glasses as they began to slip down slightly down her soft face. Normally yes, I would, however, seeing as how you did save a student's life only a day ago, along with getting attacked by the Kendo Club, which they thank you once more for accepting their apology, I have decided to do some good in return for what you have been through the last 2 days. Think of it as a thank you for 1, saving a fellow student who could have drowned and died, and 2, for not retaliating against the Kendo Club. Now, while I am a nurse, I am also a licensed doctor with enough diplomas to be able to run a hospital. Because of that, I will be giving you a note that will keep you out of school for 3 weeks, reason being that a damaged bone could take either 2 to 8 weeks to completely heal itself back to regular function. However, I will require that you come to the school tomorrow to have an X-ray, reason being I don't want to cause more harm than good by having you go through an X-ray with your injured arm. So for now I will leave it. Spoke Trami as her brown eyes stared into Naruto's blue with a calm professional tone. Having a few seconds to think about it, Naruto couldn't help but smile and nod. Okay, thank you, Tarami-sensei. And you didn't really need to go to this length for me, Databayo. Spoke Naruto loudly, only to blink as a new flash of images flew through his head. This time it was both a younger-looking version of him and his current age version of him saying the word Databayo with people around him. And just as the images appeared, they disappeared a few moments after. Tommy seemed to take offense to that as she moved her face closer towards Naruto's with a narrowed stare, her glasses making the stare seem even more frightening. What is that I hear? Did I just hear a student under my care say that I didn't need to put effort in their recovery? Do you really believe that, Uzumaki-kun? Shall we prove that I am not needed here? Asked Tommy with a quite cold tone, something that scared the shit out of the blonde-haired Uzumaki, as he scratched the back of his head with his left arm. And no, Tarami-sensei, I am very thankful such a beautiful and busy woman like yourself made time to help me. Spoke Naruto out loud with a small trail of sweat escaping his forehead as he looked into his teacher's brown-eyed gaze with a small amount of fear that slowly grew as seconds went by. However, it all disappeared when Naruto saw the teacher/nurse nod her head with a small smile. That's what I thought I heard. Thank you, Naruto-kun, for the beautiful comment. Now began Tarami as she pulled out a small piece of paper from her nurse's outfit and quickly wrote down the time for Naruto's x-ray. Giving the blonde the small sheet of paper, the teacher smiled at him before walking out. Remember to be there on time, Naruto-kun. Like you said, I am a beautiful and busy woman. Finished the teacher with a small smile as she walked out from the younger blonde's apartment. However, the moment the teacher left the apartment, the blonde quickly began to rip open his bandages before chucking his bracer right off his injured right arm. No fucking way, muttered Naruto as he simply stared at his right arm as he moved it around without a single wince of pain. Blinking to himself, Naruto moved his left hand to pinch his right arm. He was surprised, however, to notice that he did feel the pinch, but nothing other than that. Suddenly Naruto simply slouched into his couch, his mind only wandering to what he read on the scroll. While you do not know who you truly are, you will find out along your journey. What does that mean? Was he different in some way from regular people? Shaking his head, Naruto simply pushed himself off his couch, his mind slightly wincing as he felt a strain in his right forearm. Okay, so I guess even if my arm fixed itself overnight it isn't perfect, but I guess I would rather take this than a properly broken arm, muttered Naruto mentally as he picked up his bag on his way towards his bedroom, intent on finding something out from his newly acquired books. Opening his bedroom door and walking towards his desk, Naruto quickly opened his bag and placed his 5 books onto the desk, the books being Chakra Control 101, Fuinjutsu Level 1, Body Conditioning/Training and the Basics of Nature Transformation. Nodding to himself, Naruto then went to grab the books under his desk, making sure to place them all neatly along his desk. Placing the final book down, the blonde sat himself down on his desk chair and searched through each and every book he now had, his mind mentally recording each and every title. His eyes flew by before finally coming to a stop on the original, used to be scroll, book. You know, I didn't really check this book out that much, I'd better see what else is inside, muttered Naruto as he opened the book, completely ignoring the first page before turning it over and staring at the title on the blank page. Genin, muttered Naruto as he dragged a finger across the page. Thinking back to what had happened when he sent chakra through the first page, the blonde shrugged before sending a small amount of chakra into the page. However, unlike the first page, instead of a shit ton of books popping up, new writing began to appear on the page. Chakra Control, Low Academy Student. Chakra Amount, Mid Academy Student. Body Overall, Low Academy Student. Taijutsu, Non-Existent. Ninjutsu, Non-Existent. Genjutsu, Non-Existent. Kenjutsu, Non-Existent. Bukijutsu, Non-Existent. Fuinjutsu, Non-Existent. Nature Transformation, Non-Existent. Rating, Low Academy Student. Unable to proceed to Gen in rank. Blinking, Naruto couldn't help but stare. It looked like the book basically told him what his current abilities are, and what he needed to upgrade to pass. Well, at least I can keep up to date on what I need now, so I pretty much have to get all of this into a Genin standard before I can rank up and get the next probable books and knowledge to continue learning. Damn, oh well. So far the only things I have that have a small bit of success are the top 3, although, if my current body is so weak, then I guess would need to train extremely hard to increase my body's strength, speed, stamina and so forth, but I should do chakra control exercises now. I mean, I learn how to, and plus, if I manage to do the leaf balancing while reading another book, it would really help improve both my control along with teaching me how to multitask. Screw it, I'll do it now, muttered Naruto as he stood up and grabbed his Chakra Control 101 book once more before going outside to collect some leaves to practice with. And within the span of 10 minutes, Naruto began to train his chakra control. It seems that it's a clean break, Naruto-kun. The bone should mend itself within 4 weeks. just remember to not strain it, okay? Said Tommy as she handed the blonde-haired teen his x-rays, showing a clearly broken forearm. Giving a small nod and wave, the blonde-haired teen walked out of the office, his destination being his home as his x-ray was completed. Okay. Note to self, get a doctor to check up any noticeable injuries pronto before they have a chance to heal, muttered Naruto as he stared towards his right hand, which was now encased in a cast and held in place by a sling Tarami-sensei had wrapped around his neck. Looking towards the sky, the blonde couldn't help but release a sigh as he felt his newly broken forearm start to heal at a ridiculous rate, something that the blonde was thankful for as the broken forearm had irritated him to no end. You see, just as Naruto woke up this morning, after cheering to himself for over an hour about learning the leaf chakra control exercise and being able to hold the leaf up for over 20 minutes, which increased with each refill of his chakra. Not that he realized he was gaining chakra, as it was only a small amount each time, however, that was until he noticed with each refill of his chakra. His leaf concentration exercise increased its time by a few minutes to the point that it was obvious that his reserves increased with the chakra control training. However, once he got over his slight bit of excitement, the blonde realized a very important fact as he was getting ready. His arm was healed. If he was to go meet Tarami-sensei and she used her x-ray, he was sure she would be asking questions he wasn't willing to share. Seeing as how he was trapped inside of a cube metaphorically, the blonde did the only thing that popped up in his mind, which happened to be him using his left hand covered in chakra to snap his forearm around the area of where his original break was. Safe to say, he was not going to be patting himself on the back for his idea. However, it seemed to work as Tarami-sensei explained that while it was better than she expected, it would still take a few weeks to heal. After that he gained the doctor note explaining that he wasn't fit to attend school for the next 3 weeks, something he was mentally jumping all over the place with a massive grin. Reaching his apartment with a few minutes off leaving the school, something for he was grateful for, Naruto quickly opened his door with his left hand before entering and locking the previous door in place. Looking around the room for a moment, the blonde gave out a sigh of relief as he surged his chakra into his arm, enjoying the peaceful feeling of his chakra moving through his body as he walked towards his kitchen cupboards, intent on getting a bowl of instant ramen to fill him up a bit. Placing the bowl down on the countertop and pulling the cover of the bowl to halfway, Naruto walked towards his small kettle before picking it up and moving it towards his sink, filling the small kettle enough so that he could fill his ramen bowl. Turning on the stove and placing the kettle on the fire, the blonde stood by and watched as the water within the kettle start to bubble, soon followed by steam. Seeing the steam come out of the nozzle, Naruto moved the kettle and placed it beside his instant ramen. Making sure to add the flavoring first, the blonde tipped the kettle over slightly, making sure that the boiling water only landed in the ramen bowl and not on the kitchen counter or himself. Seeing it filled, the blonde covered the top of the ramen to prevent any of the heat to escape from the delicious instant ramen cup. Sure, it wasn't nearly as good as actual ramen, but beggars can't be choosers. Moving his ramen with his left hand to his tabletop, the blonde walked into his room before pulling out his Basics of Nature Transformation before he began to read from where he left off at school when he originally got his forearm broken by Rukia. He didn't know why, but something felt off about her. And he wasn't talking about the whole looking happy she got to snap a bone. Shaking his head and pulling out a pair of chopsticks from nowhere, the blonde-haired teen pulled the lid off his bowl of ramen before inhaling it with gusto, making sure that nothing was remaining inside the once full bowl. During his time of eating, Naruto managed to break the cast that surrounded his arm before getting it out of his sling that Tarami-sensei had made for him before he picked up his nature transformation book and began to read. While the book was quite decently big, he managed to read most of it while at school, so he only had a few pages left to read before he hit the end. But he had to admit, if he could truly learn and master everything he was reading, he would use his power to the fullest. He would use things he would learn to help people, like for instance if he had medical ninjutsu, he could heal people at will if he got to a master level. And with Fuinjutsu, he could prevent damages from natural disasters with enough knowledge in the art. Placing his chopsticks down and holding the book with both hands, Naruto couldn't help but tilt his head slightly as he reached the end of the book, the last page saying that he had to pull the page out of the book and send chakra through it. Why would the book ask him that? He didn't know. But seeing as how the books haven't killed him somehow so far, he decided to give it a go. Pulling the page out from the book carefully, the blonde-haired teen placed the piece of paper down onto the table, making sure to clear everything around it just in case, before he sent chakra into the sheet. What he saw shocked the hell out of him. First, the sheet split into 4 separate smaller pieces. Before one of the 4 pieces began to set aflame, one other piece became damp as if wet, then one of the last 2 normal pieces crinkled up on itself, soon followed by the last piece of paper having bits of it turning into dirt and rock. Naruto couldn't do anything other than stare, even when he noticed that the flame created from one of the 4 pieces continued to burn, using the wooden coffee table to help it grow in the process. However, Naruto hadn't had to worry as the damp piece of paper had a bit of water flow out from it and into the flame, extinguishing it with a single touch. Raising his left hand to his head, Naruto couldn't believe what he just saw. Not only did the piece of paper split itself, but the 4 pieces that had been split each had a separate thing happen to them. Wind, water, fire, earth, lightning. If what the book told me is correct, I got all the basic affinities for each element, but it's been stated while there have been a few who trained to gain a decent grasp of each affinity, there wasn't anyone who actually was born with it. Wait, does that mean damn it? Shouted Naruto as he dropped his head and in desperation before he suddenly shot up off his couch and began to walk towards his room, a determined glint held within his eyes. No, I gotta be sure, muttered Naruto as he pushed his bedroom door open before walking towards the original book he had. Flicking the pages until he hit the genin page, the blonde sent a wave of chakra through the book and had a tear of mock sadness spill from his right eye as he looked towards the page. Chakra control, High Academy student. Chakra amount, Mid Academy student. Body overall, Low Academy student. Taijutsu, non-existent. Ninjutsu, non-existent. Genjutsu, non-existent. Kenjutsu, non-existent. Bukijutsu, non-existent. Fuinjutsu, non-existent. Nature transformation, non-existent. Wind nature transformation, non-existent. Water nature transformation, non-existent. Earth nature transformation, non-existent. Fire nature transformation, non-existent. Lightning nature transformation, non-existent. Rating, Low Academy student. Unable to proceed to genin rank. Naruto felt like he could cry at that moment. Sure, he probably have to find out his nature transformation to proceed into a genin rank, but now he had 5 elements to increase to a genin rank, on top of the already large list. Although, he did have to thank heaven for letting the basic nature transformation book have the first step for each basic element along with some notes on how to speed up the learning process. Snapping his original book closed, Naruto couldn't help but release a sigh before narrowing his eyes towards the large stacks of books he had. I got 3 weeks before I have to return to school and I had already told Yurichi that I couldn't come to work because of the injury. Yurichi didn't seem all that thoughtful or pleased as the man hanged up straight after told him either way, I have paid my bills for the next month so I got a pure 3 weeks to myself but I can actually train in the city without being nearly restricted to the bare basics of what I have to learn either way. Half the basic stuff are incredibly powerful. Fuinjutsu was an example, and if I screw up when I begin to learn that, I could potentially kill someone with it. And that was bad news, not only because he killed someone, but his abilities would be found out. And when something interesting pops up in a person, the world wants to gain the interesting trait for themselves, so I better not let anyone know of my abilities, muttered Naruto to himself as he stared at the stacks of books for a few more minutes, his face showing his turmoil as he attempted to figure out what to do. However, a few minutes of staring, Naruto knew what he was going to do. So with a grin appearing on his face, the blonde stuck a finger into the air and proclaimed loudly, well, loud enough so that it would make it seem amazing while not irritating the neighbors. "Hi, Naruto Uzumaki, we'll go camping," shouted Naruto with a grin on his face as he began to move around his room in a calm, even walking pace, making sure to grab all the necessary items for his camping trip. Within 20 minutes the blonde had managed to pack himself, and was ready to set off. 2 weeks and 6 days later, you guys got your time skip, winky face. Shit! 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 Shouted a blonde teen as he quickly jumped into the lake he found in the forest where he decided to camp. The reason for his action of jumping into the lake? He just set his shirt on fire. Smashing his head through the water's surface and taking in a gulp of air, the blonde-haired teen known as Naruto Uzumaki gave out a throaty chuckle as he pulled himself out of his lake. It had been 2 weeks and 6 days ago since he went camping. And in those simple 2 weeks and 6 days, Naruto himself could only grin at what he achieved. When he had left for his camping trip, the blonde-haired teen made sure to grab everything he needed to advance in his rank in his original book. Safe to say, he achieved it. Although barely, as the chakra nature training was the most time-consuming. It would have taken him longer to learn had it not been for the bits and pieces of notes explain how his chakra was supposed to work. For example would be his wind chakra nature training. He would have spent weeks trying to simply rip the paper. However, with a few notes telling him that wind chakra was more of like 2 blades slashing at each other, sharpening both of them at the same time, he had managed to complete the exercise within 2 days. The other elements were easier, as he searched specifically for the notes on how to complete the nature transformation training. However, his nature transformation wasn't his best achievement. His biggest achievement within the 2 weeks was his Fuinjutsu practice. Sure, his chakra control and amount increased to the rank of High Genin, which both shocked and excited him as he didn't think it was possible to have an increase of both control and amount at an extremely fast pace. Although his chakra control and amount were High Genin, the rest like ninjutsu and taijutsu were at a genin rank along with pretty much everything else that was written down as a requirement. But his Fuinjutsu was his secret lover. Originally, the blonde-haired teen wanted to focus on everything and leave Fuinjutsu till last, reason being that it wasn't as practical as the rest, even if it had near limitless potential hidden within its art. And that's what Naruto did for the first 2 days. He completely ignored the sacred art until he was bored at night with nothing to do. Sure, he could have trained more, but his chakra was exhausted from constant wind nature training along with his physical training. So, seeing as how he had a good chunk of light still out, he decided to read the art that is called Fuinjutsu. He hadn't realized it, but after days on end reading the book at the dead of night, he had learned that if he pushed enough chakra into his eyes, his eyesight, which was already perfect, could increase and decrease in both brightness and distance. Sure, not exactly a long distance, but a small bit was better than none at all. Throwing his newly tattered shirt into the lake, seeing as there was still a small flame flickering among the ends of the shirt, Naruto couldn't help but pick up a decently large rock near his foot and move to sit down underneath the shade of a large oak tree. Holding the rock in his hand, the blonde closed his eyes as he imagined his wind nature chakra slice straight through the dense material. Feeling his chakra grinding against itself and making it both sharper and more accurate, the blonde couldn't help but give out a joyful sigh as he felt the rock in his hand split into 2 smaller pieces. Currently, his wind element was the strongest, his weakest being nothing. Wind just happened to be his strongest as he spent a bit more time with it, being as it was easy to strengthen by cutting different solid objects like leaves, rocks, and even trees. Although he wasn't good enough to cut full-grown trees, small dead trees he could with some minor difficulty. His other elements, being water, earth, lightning, and fire, were all trained in different ways as he hadn't known what the next stage was. So, because of this, Naruto had decided to take it upon himself to strengthen his nature affinities through his own ideas. An example for fire being him lighting a small patch of grass near the lake on fire, and then using his water manipulation to draw the water out from the lake to drench the fire out. He did similar things with lightning and earth, his earth manipulation being in the form of carrying scroll to and from his camping grounds and his lightning chakra to charge his phone. This eventually changed to where he was using his lightning chakra to kill/paralyze small animals for food as he had read a survival book during his time. He had also taken inspiration from the anime Darker Than Black on how to use his lightning nature. He had also forgot to stack up on food, which was the reason for his hunting, and water. Water was luckily provided by the lake, which was home to fresh water, although he did use his water manipulation to clean it before he drank any, just another thing he learned he could do with his nature manipulation. Looking around the clearing for his bag, Naruto couldn't help but smile as he glanced over his wooden bakken and staff that sat lazily near his stone dummy, which he once again created with his earth chakra. Although it still hurt to punch the thing, he could feel his strength increase as he smashed his way through rock dummy throughout the weeks. He did however learn that when he had gained his bakken and staff at the ends of both Kenjutsu beginner and weapon master, he realized that when he moved chakra into either weapon, the weapon gained weight on it and stayed on it. So when he put in a small amount of chakra into the weapon, it grew a little bit heavier. Luckily he learned that before thinking of surrounding his weapons in nature chakra, well, apart from fire, as that was just asking for trouble, but wind, lightning, and even earth and water. And seeing as how it takes more chakra to turn into an element, he wouldn't have been able to move either for a long time. Shaking his head from the thought of him trying to haul a sword with all his might only to fail, Naruto once again looked for his equipment before noticing it on the opposite side of his clearing. So, using his earth chakra, the blonde gave a grin as he watched a small bit of earth lifted his camping bag up and move its way over to him at a decent rate. Now why would he require his backpack? For his original book, of course. Watching as his backpack arrived next to him, Naruto released his earth chakra and watched as the small hill crumbled for a moment before shoving a hand inside the bag and pulling out a book. Lucky for him, he had gotten the right book the first time around. Giving a grin, the blonde couldn't help but bounce slightly as he flicked through the pages until he landed on the genin page once more. Holding the book with both hands, Naruto sent chakra through his hands before watching as his current stats appeared, and as he read, he couldn't help but increase his smile as his eyes traveled down the list, although he won't deny that his eyes widened in pure shock at some of the things that appeared. Chakra control, low jonin. Chakra amount, high chunin. Body overall, mid genin. Strength, high genin. Speed, mid genin. Stamina, low jonin. Endurance, mid genin. Experience, non-existent. Taijutsu, mid genin. Ninjutsu, mid genin. Genjutsu, low genin. Kenjutsu, high genin. Bukijutsu, high genin. Fuinjutsu, genin. Level 1 pass. Level 2 pass. Nature transformation, high chunin. Wind nature transformation, low jonin. Water nature transformation, high chunin. Earth nature transformation, mid chunin. Fire nature transformation, mid chunin. Lightning nature transformation, high chunin. Rating, well above requirements. Genin level ninja. Before Naruto could even think, the sound of another poof was heard. And when the smoke disappeared, Naruto could only widen his eyes as a large amount of items appeared, although that wasn't what made Naruto widen his eyes. Dropping to his knees and crawling forwards, Naruto couldn't help but stare at the neatly laid objects in front of him. In front of him were two headbands with the leaf symbol like in the images he saw, although one of them had a scratch slightly angled above the leaf. Next was a small book with the title Tales of the Gutsy Ninja with a small green gem necklace, followed by a half-face mask and a simple photo book. However, for the small book, the face mask and the photo book, there was a scroll placed above them. However, Naruto couldn't stop his hand as it reached for the headbands, and just as he touched them, he felt it. He felt the achievements, the dread, the anger, the sorrow, the joy, the sadness, he felt it all rush through him as he brought the two headbands to his chest as he shut his eyes, attempting to stop the buildup of tears he felt. Iruka-sensei Sasuke team muttered Naruto quietly before placing the headbands down beside him before reaching out and gripping the face mask tightly once again, shutting his eyes to hold back the tears that were collecting as his face clenched up with sadness. Kakashi-sensei muttered Naruto once more, his tears drying up slightly behind his eyelids as he once again placed the mask neatly beside the headbands before picking up the photo book and opening it up, only to shut it completely as he began to cry slightly. Gigi, cried out Naruto silently as the image of a 4-year-old version of him sitting next to an old man eating ice cream happily. Holding the photo book tightly for a few seconds, Naruto slowly placed it beside him with the others before grabbing hold of the green jewel necklace before unhooking the back and putting it on, crying and releasing a sob as he muttered a name close to his heart. Tsunade-bachan, sobbed out Naruto as he sat on his calves with his hands dropped above his lap as he simply cried for a few more seconds. Soon he opened his eyes one more, only looking at the book for a second before he picked it up and opened it, and when he did he broke down, he cried. Iero-sennin, cried Naruto as his tears spilt onto the book's cover as he thought of his teacher/godfather. Before he knew it, however, Naruto was cut off from his sadness as another poof was heard. Opening his red puffy eyes open slowly, the blonde couldn't do anything but stare at the message that appeared on the front of the book he held, although, when he read the message, Naruto couldn't help but give a small smile with tears of joy spilling down his cheeks as he read the message. Iero-sennin Bachan, Kakashi-sensei team Iruka-sensei, if each rank gives me more of mementos of my friends, then I will become a master. I will not forget them, shouted Naruto towards the sky, his voice powerful enough to send the local birds flying away in a hurry as a fire burned within Naruto's eyes for the first time in his life. For once, Naruto Uzumaki knew what he wanted to achieve in his current life. He wanted to regain the memories of his life, because those memories were created through both pain and suffering. He sure as hell wasn't going to forget about his friends completely, not while he could stop it. Turning his body slightly, Naruto let a smile grace his features as he once again started to pick up the items, the mask being first as he slipped it on around his neck so that he could lift the face mask up at any time. Grabbing the black-clothed headband, the blonde ripped a bit of the fabric, shortening it enough so that when he wrapped it around his left arm, it only looked like an armband. Grabbing both photo book and novel, Naruto moved the novel into his pocket and the photo book towards his bag, which was now flooded with new material for him to learn. Giving a sigh, the blonde looked towards the sky and gave a light smile as the sun shone high above the clouds. I am Naruto Uzumaki Genin of Konoha, previous Jinchuriki of Kurama. I don't remember anything after returning from my training trip other than bits and pieces, and you know what, muttered Naruto, as he closed his eyes for a moment, letting the wind blow through his hair gently as he thought of his next few words. Slowly opening his eyes, Naruto couldn't help but smile slightly once more. I'm not going to stop until I remember it all, even if it's the past. I won't forget it, but I won't also live in it, finished Naruto, as he shut his eyes once more and laid against the tree in the park as he dozed off to sleep. No way, I thought he broke his arm? I heard from Tarami-sensei saying that he should have his arms still in a cast. Hey, does he look a bit different to you? For some reason he seems, I dunno, nicer? Yeah, now that you mention it, he does seem a bit nicer. I wonder why though. As Naruto strolled through the corridor to enter his homeroom class, he couldn't help but hold a smile to his face as he heard the reaction of his castless return after his 3-week training trip. He had to admit, he did feel even better today than he did other days. After all, he did just get the memories of his closest people, even if one of them repetitively shoved their hand through his chest. Yeah, talking to you Sasuke team, but still just the memories felt nice to have, and as such, he couldn't stop his face from smiling near constantly as he walked through his school. Look at that bastard. There's a female to male ratio and like 9/10 of the guys here get ignored. I'll kill the prick. Maybe I should push him down the stairs so he breaks his arm again, muttered a student. Naruto walked by, however, as he was contemplating the other male's words, finding something instantly wrong with them. Naruto felt a pair of arms wrap around his chest, stopping him in place. Well, look who we have here. Is it Mr. Naruto Uzumaki? You have to tell me something, Naruto-kun. Where were you for the 3 weeks you got off? I attempted to come over to help you a bit, seeing as how you only had a single hand. But to my shock, the blonde-haired man who saved me had disappeared. So, where were you, Naruto-kun? You wouldn't lie to me, would you? Asked Kyome as she pushed herself up against Naruto's back, causing the blonde to have a slight blush planted onto his face as he felt the tennis club's president push her into his back, something all the other dudes noticed as they began to group together with the intention of killing Naruto for getting what they wanted done to them. Using chakra to forcefully bring his blush down, the blonde turned himself around slightly and wrapped Kyome into a hug for a few moments before pulling back with a smile still held onto his face. Good to know you care, Kyome-chan. But I had decided to go to the hospital after Rukia broke my arm and Tarami-sensei gave me the doctor's note. And because of the stubborn doctors, I had remained at the hospital for a good chunk of the 3 weeks off I had. Replied Naruto, using his left hand to scratch the back of his head in embarrassment, as he told Kyome the lie he had just thought up just then. However, Naruto noticed that Kyome seemed to be confused about something as she tilted her head in confusion to his words. What's wrong? Asked Naruto with a tilt of his head, mimicking Kyome as both now held their heads in a tilt. What do you mean Rukia broke your arm? Did you get amnesia as well when you fell down the stairs and broke your arm? Asked Kyome as she scratched her head slightly in thought, before asking another question. Also, who is Rukia? I have never heard of a Rukia in this school before. Is she an out-of-school friend of yours? Asked Kyome with a curious tone as she looked towards Naruto, who simply had a confused face on. However, just as Naruto was going to open his mouth, he remembered something Kakashi had always said to him. Check the underneath of the underneath. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei, thought Naruto was a small smile before he scratched the back of his head once more. Why yeah, I guess I might have gotten a slight case of amnesia from landing wrong after I fell. Hey, did you see the match between Rukia the Manslaughterer and Takechi of the Mountain? Asked Naruto, remembering that it was the newest match he viewed before he broke his arm and gained his chakra, although it seemed that Kyome didn't have clue what he was on about as she gave a small laugh towards Naruto. Are Rukia the Manslaughterer? Geez, Naruto-kun. I never realized you were this funny before. Oh, I wonder what goes in that head of yours, Naruto-kun, but thanks again for saving my life a few weeks back. I gotta go now, see you later, Naruto, said Kyome as she began to walk away from the taller blonde with a wave as she disappeared around the corridor corner. Watching Kyome disappear, the blonde couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly, not enough to be noticed or change his happy look, but just enough that people, if they looked hard enough, would find out that Naruto was thinking about something and wasn't paying attention to his surrounding. And as Naruto was turning a corner? Gasp! A large gasp ran through the corridor as students stared in shock and jealousy at what had happened only moments ago. When Naruto walked around the corner, Rias Gremory, their senpai and great woman, had tragically collided with the blonde-haired man. But no, that's not what shocked them. What shocked them was the way that Rias-sama fell onto the falling Uzumaki and got into a lip lock with him after landing. All was silent for the next few moments. Both Rias and Naruto were shocked, so they hadn't moved an inch from their lip-locked position, only gazing into each other's shocked eyes for seconds on end. However, the two snapped back into reality when a loud scream was heard from the male populace. Naruto Uzumaki has taken a holy relic off the US mere mortals. He has just taken the lips of the great lady Rias-sama. Kill the bastard! Shouted one of the male students, soon followed by a bunch of attack. The blonde bastard! Screams. Naruto could only stare as he watched the group of males slowly charge towards him with a tilt of his head. Did his training reel make everyone else seem so slow? Snapping his head out of its thoughts, the the blonde-haired man quickly sent the redhead girl on top of him a grin before helping her up and dashing off with moderate speed. Couldn't let anyone know that he could probably outpace them without any effort after all. Standing up and dusting herself off, Rias couldn't help but turn her head down the corridor the blonde-haired man had run and give a raised eyebrow at the interaction that had just transpired a few moments ago. Era, is that a blush I see, Rias Bucho? Asked a dark-haired woman next to Rias with a grin on her face, as she too had watched what had transpired a few moments ago with a grin on her face. Rias only gave her friend a small glare. Aquino, that wasn't funny. Now on to business. Our club will meet up next period to discuss about the myths of fallen angels and how they were likely created, replied Rias, turning around and walking away slightly as Aquino smiled. Hi, Rias Bucho, replied Aquino as she walked away as well, giving Rias the perfect opportunity to hide her blush with some weak devil magic as she walked towards her class. Where the hell did he get this much paint? Shouted a male as he slid into a locker and knocking himself out, soon followed by the rest of the now dubbed KNU Club. The Kill Naruto Uzumaki Club. What were the KNU Club were on about? They were on about the paint buckets the blonde-haired bastard had managed to find as they were chasing after him through the second floor of the Ko Academy main building. Through the chase, Naruto couldn't help but grin as he saw flashes of himself being chased by countless Chunin, Jonin, and even the Adambu. Hell, one time his Gigi joined in on the chase as the scene apparently showed him with the Hokage hat on his head as he ran and dodged the old man who attempted to regain his hat. Chuckling to himself, Naruto couldn't help but move into the arts and supplies room once more, something that the KNU Club didn't notice as they chased him in circles for the past few minutes. Although he could still hear them coming, the blonde couldn't help but enter the arts supply room and grab a whole tin of orange paint before opening the art room door and waiting for them to pass by, and when they did, safe to say they all got a new skin color, that being bright orange. Closing the door and moving towards the window, Naruto quickly checked to see if anyone else was looking out from the windows around the school building. Seeing no one, Naruto decided to use his newfound skills to drop down from the second story and land near the back entrance of the school. Placing his hands in his pockets, after washing some of the paint off with some quick chakra taxiing water nature cleaning, the blonde then walked through the back entrance with a smile as he walked up the steps towards the second floor once more with a grin as he saw a teacher yelling at the good 15 male students who were covered in paint. However, one of them seemed to notice him as he rose up the steps. There. It was him. He did this. Not us. You have to believe us, Dachi-sensei, shouted one of the male students, only to get a glare from the teacher as he walked up to Naruto and patted his shoulder. Oh, sorry, Irichi-san. I didn't know that Naruto here could be in the supposed art room and right next to me as well. Detention for all of you for one. Causing a ruckus. And two. For not only wasting school supplies, but also trying to get a fellow student in trouble when he clearly wasn't involved. Said Dachi was a huff before he turned slightly towards the chuckling blonde before giving a smile. Sorry, Naruto-san. It seems that most people these days always blame the quiet ones to get out of trouble. Now on to you, Naruto-san, said Dachi to Naruto, only getting a thumbs up and grin from the still slightly chuckling Naruto as he walked away from the teacher, while also discreetly sending a wink towards the now orange-colored students, who simply returned Naruto's wink with a full-blown glare. However, before Naruto could get away, he couldn't help but grin slightly towards the girls who stood there watching with shock at what had happened. Holding his grin, Naruto couldn't hold himself back from winking. Enjoyed the show? Asked Naruto as he walked away, his ears picking up a few yes mumbles as he walked away towards his class with his grin in place. However, his grin soon changed into a smile as his hand brushed the front cover of his new favorite book, apart from his new ninja scrolls, The Tales of a Gutsy Ninja. Ero-sennin, thought Naruto with a smile before moving his hand up to his neck before lifting up a small green jewel to eye level. His smile softened slightly as he looked at the shine the gem produced as he looked towards it. Bachan, I bet Shizune-chan is still looking after you in the afterlife. Guess you won't be getting any sake up there as well, huh? Thought Naruto towards himself rhetorically as he dropped his necklace, and chuckled to himself once more, imaging Shizen hold a bottle of sake away from his Bachan's angel form. The blonde's chuckles increased slightly as he pictured Jiraiya hiding behind some clouds with a pair of binoculars before he got sent flying away by a hit from Tsunade. He could even imagine Kakashi chilling on a cloud reading Jiraiya's books from start to finish. Placing himself down into his seat, Naruto couldn't help but pay attention to the work the teachers had given him that day, his chakra just causing him to stay focused as it moved throughout him every second. It was safe to say some teachers were also unnerved by Naruto's sudden work ethic. Through the first few periods before recess. Ring. Hearing the bell, Naruto snapped his book shut. He had somehow finished his work before everyone else and decided to get cracking on Fuinjutsu level 3 while also practicing the things he learned from the level 1 and 2 books, that being some simple kanji, and how they are put together along with their meanings. He also began to work on his calligraphy, as it is mentioned in the third book that any seal can end up not working, or worse, because of a simple slip of the brush. So, he had spent his extra time at school working on Fuinjutsu, and seeing as how he finished his work quite fast, the teachers so far let him do his own thing, probably too surprised to do anything other than help other students with their work. Placing his Fuinjutsu level 3 book into his bag, the blonde quickly slung it onto his back before exiting the room, giving a small grin to the smiling teacher as he left and walked towards the staircase up to the roof, intent on once again practicing either his Fuinjutsu or even his newly needed learning skill of medical ninjutsu. Lucky enough, he decided to bring the medical ninjutsu genin and Chunin guide with him. Opening the door to the roof, the blonde couldn't help but be embraced by the slightly strong wind as it blew by his face and hair as he closed the roof door and moved to the left of the door before sitting down and pulling out a book on medical ninjutsu, the genin guide, as it was the beginning book after all. However, not even 3 minutes in, Naruto heard the door open up before someone walked through and moved to the right and sit themselves down, not aware that Naruto was even there. Not a few moments later, the door opened up again, and another pair of footsteps were heard before going towards the right of the door. And a few seconds after that? "Okay, Tace. Please don't lick me there. It's sensitive," silently screamed Murayama in bliss, soon followed by Kate's reply of "but I like to." Naruto could only sit there with a blush as he heard the tall tale sounds of the two kendo club members kissing, groping, moaning and licking. He couldn't stop his body from heating up as he heard the sexual growls coming from the two women only to the right of the door. He was lucky that he had taken cover towards the left of the wall, otherwise he would have been spotted and not gotten the chance to hear the amazing sounds he did currently. "KK-Tace. Please lick me down there. I can't take it anymore," silently screamed Murayama as Kate's followed her order. How Naruto knew this. It totally wasn't the moans he was hearing or anything. However, at the 6-minute mark, Naruto couldn't take it anymore. Moving his hands through a few hand seals, the blonde could only mutter a small Totan no Jutsu before Naruto's form began to flicker away, and with a perverted chuckle, too silent for either woman to notice, the blonde moved around as silently as possible and stood in front of the two girls, enjoying each other's presence without either noticing. Naruto himself couldn't help the blonde that was now trailing down his nose and onto his shirt. He hadn't even bothered wiping it away as he just stared at the two scissoring women who were now moaning each other's names as the sweat on their bodies gave them a glow as they moved with the other, making the slicking sounds as their cores rubbed against each other's furiously, as they brought each other to their breaking point. Naruto did everything in his power to keep him standing and not passed out. He couldn't miss this opportunity. It was a once-in-a-lifetime thing and he sure as hell wasn't going to miss it. However, he couldn't help but cry slightly towards himself as his special place was being strained in his pants. But he knew he had to hold strong. He didn't want to move his eyes away from the two women for a second. And luck for him, he didn't, as he got to watch Kate's move forwards while still rubbing her core with her friends before she gripped Murayama's right breast in her left hand before she brought her head closer to the quite large and apparently firm breast before enclosing the nipple with her mouth, bringing the natural pink-haired woman to scream loudly as she came onto both hers and Kate's cores, with Kate soon following in the scream as she came as well. However, they weren't done yet as they then began to move into a 69 positon before licking each other's liquid off their friends' cores, giving sexy moans as their tongues glided over each other's special places. That was it. Naruto couldn't take it anymore as he, like his now dead godfather, pulled out a small notebook from his back pocket, which he used for his Fuinjutsu notes, before he pulled a pen out from another pocket, and before long, the silent sound of scribbling was heard, well heard to Naruto as the two women were now licking and kissing each other in desperation. And before Naruto knew it, he had written down a whole page of ideas before the two kendo club members stopped their extremely close time together. Watching as the two girls put their cloths on all while giving each other a few kisses in between, Naruto couldn't help but move back to his original position before placing himself down quietly and releasing the Totan Jutsu with a sigh. It was one of the easier jutsus he learned from the ninjutsu book he read from Academy book. When he got the book and reached the end, he had gotten another scroll with a total of 30 jutsu. 5 ED rank jutsus for each element, and another 5 ED rank chakra techniques. Safe to say, he loved the technique after he learned it. Although, there was apparently a better version of the same technique he had, but it was apparently a chakra-taxing technique. Ahem. Naruto snapped his closed eyes open only to wince in fear as he saw Murayama and Kate stare at him with a blank look held within their eyes. Scratching the back of his head quickly, Naruto let out a small chuckle. Hey there Murayama and Kei tastes wonderful whether we have don't you agree spoke Naruto stupidly, only making the two seem to stare even harder as Naruto shook slightly. Sure, he could probably cast a genjutsu or use a ninjutsu to escape, but they would obviously see it, so it was out of the question. However, before Naruto could think of anything, he heard the two give out a gasp before looking towards where they gasped. His notebook on the page he just. Crap. Before the two could look towards him, Naruto quickly threw his hands up in a surrender and blabbed the first thing that appeared in his mind. That's research material on how I wanted the two lesbian lovers to show their love to each other after going through the hardships of finding out that they loved each other, but never told the other about their feelings. Shouted Naruto in hurry only for himself to want to commit suicide from the answer he gave the two. Damn it! He didn't have the anti-Jiraiya instinct like he used to, damn it! However, when he hadn't heard or better yet, felt the two girls. Naruto looked up slightly and dropped his jaw when he saw the two reading his work with blushes on their face as their eyes went from the top of his notes to the bottom. Did he seriously just see two girls enjoying and getting hot from his work? Can you give me a copy when it's done? Yeah, me too? Asked the two girls as they held the notebook towards Naruto, who simply blinked towards the two Kendo Club members. What? Asked Naruto with a tilt of his head, only for the two to one more stare at him. You said you were making a book, and we were asking if we could get a copy when it's done. And maybe if you give it to us for free we can always help with your research if you need, spoke Murayama with a shy tone as she looked away with a blush, Kei-Tase also agreeing with a nod and blush. Naruto blinked as his brain rebooted. He did not just hear that right? Shaking his head, the blonde-haired teen nodded with a slight rub of his neck. Sure, if possible, could I have a few spars with the Kendo Club as well then? Asked Naruto, too perplexed to respond properly as the two gave him a nod before leaving the roof. Well shit, now I have to write a book, I need help if I don't want to be labeled as a pervert, screw you Erosenin for doing this to me, muttered Naruto before he collected his books and placed them in the bag before leaving the roof. Lunchtime. Please Kyom-chan. I'm begging you here. I couldn't have asked anyone else. Please help me, begged Naruto as he was clutching onto Kyom's ankle as she walked, dragging him along with what appeared to be barely any effort as she twitched from his voice. Damn it, Naruto. No. It was your choice to peek, not me, damn it. This is your problem to solve, now let go of my goddamn leg, you blonde-haired bastard, screamed Kyom as she tried to yank her leg from Naruto's grip, only getting more ferocious as Naruto clamped on tighter with every attempt that she did. Naruto only looked up at her with tears in his eyes. Please. I'll do anything. Please help me with my book, begged Naruto as he started to stroke his face on Kyom's leg as if he was a dog or fox in this case. Kyom twitched as she thought of the offer for a split second before crushing the idea. No. I'm not helping you write smut, Naruto, yelled Kyom as she was now trying to push his head off her leg before Naruto blinked at her. Who said I wanted your help with writing smut? I wanted help with the story and have the smut as a minor. Hell, the smut is only going to be in it because Murayama and Kei-Tase enjoyed it and requested that they have copies if I had written the smut in there, replied Naruto as he released a sigh as Kyom stopped shaking her leg around. Kyom blinked before she gave out a sigh. Fine, I will help you, but learn how to say something without giving the wrong impression, muttered Kyom, only making Naruto tilt his head. How did I give you the wrong impression? Asked Naruto, only getting a blank stare from Kyom, who moved a hand to hold her chin. Oh, I don't know. How about when you ran up to me and said, Kyom, I need help writing a book with smut in it, want to help me? Now, seriously, how do you think that sounded to me? Asked Kyom with a tilt of her head and a raised eyebrow, only to twitch as Naruto shrugged his shoulders as he clutched onto her leg. I don't know, probably curious maybe, said Naruto as he finally released his clutch on Kyom's leg with a smile as he stood up and gave her a thumbs up. Anyway, thanks Kyom-chan. I owe you one. So when do you want to help me? Today sound good? Asked Naruto with a tilt of his head, only to get a sigh from the brown-haired girl. Yes sure, I remember what you address is from Tarami-sensei. I'll see you at 6 since I got my tennis club meeting after school. I'll see you later, Naruto-kun, muttered Kyom as she walked away from the blonde after what seemed like hours of her trying to get him off her leg. Grinning, Naruto couldn't help but swipe his forearm across his forehead, relief washing over him as he now had some help with the story part of his book. Hopefully the feminine touch will make it less sleaze and more romance, but who knows how it will turn out. Seeing as how he had a few minutes left, Naruto walked up to a shady tree and picked a few leaves off before dropping himself against the base before using each elemental transformation to either slice, dry, crinkle, burn or crumble each leaf he had. However, it wasn't more than a few seconds that the leaves he previously picked out were used. Releasing a sigh, the blonde shuffled himself slightly and began to use chakra to hold himself to the tree behind him. Now, to any onlooker, it would only seem that Naruto was sitting down on the ground against the tree, when in actual he was holding himself off the ground by barely a centimeter, as he could only hold his body that high before someone noticed him, although with the constant shuffling, which in actual was his chakra control slipping, the blonde could only release a sigh as he attempted to use his chakra to stick him onto the tree. Seeing as how he couldn't attempt the tree climbing exercise while in such a public area. Hearing the bell go off in the distance, the blonde stood himself up before walking towards the academy main entrance before his ears managed to pick up an interesting conversation near his location. Focusing his chakra towards his ears, Naruto couldn't help but show an expression of shock as he managed to hear the last few sentences spoken. "Guys, this is Yuma-chan," spoke Issei. The only reason he knew it was Issei was from hearing the way it both sounded and how he spoke. Now normally Naruto wouldn't care, but for some strange reason, when the next person spoke, he could only imagine Rukia with a really soft voice. "Hello, I'm Issei-kun's girlfriend. It's nice to meet Issei's friends," spoke a feminine girl, once again making him feel a similarity between Rukia and this apparent soft-sounding voice. Shaking his head, Naruto walked off towards class. He shouldn't get caught up in others' affairs. Well, that's what his calm side said. His Uzumaki side said, "Get in there and scream how you would be the president of the world and then change the name of that into being called Hokage and make a village named the Hidden Leaves Village with that being where the Hokage resides." Yeah, even if he knew that it was him really saying it, he wasn't going to listen to Databeo. Shaking his head as he went towards his last class, the blonde couldn't hold back a sigh as he spent his final period finishing his work early and reading more into his medical ninjutsu book. It didn't take long for him to realize he was back in his apartment within the span of an hour and 10 minutes. Chucking his bag towards the couch and crashing onto the couch and bag, the blonde kept his attention onto his medical book. He also didn't notice the hours go by until it was a sole 5:35 p.m. before he snapped the book shut, his mind rushing and swirling with new information as he gave out a large sigh of relief for the moment. Before he realized he was having a guest come over and he had nothing for them to eat. Raising his hands into a cross, Naruto grinned as the memories of his past life flew by once more. Kagebushin no Jutsu. And with that command, a group of 5 Kagebushin appeared surrounding Naruto, each clone holding that of a mid-level academy student as they grinned towards their boss. Seeing this, Naruto gave his clones a thumbs up before shouting out orders. "Clone 1. I need you to get takeout and pronto. However, as much as it pains me to say don't get ramen, don't give me that look, I am holding the same shock inside, okay?" muttered Naruto as he watched his first clone leave before directing his attention towards the rest. "Okay, I guess we should actually, I don't know what else we should do. I mean, the room's not dirty or anything and I don't smell anything bad. Guess I should grab my laptop from my bed and bring it, and the charger here to begin writing and planning. I guess I would need my previous notes as well. Okay, I know what I want you guys to do. Please place the silencing seals we learned in Chapter 3 Basic Seals and Creation, got it? Also, if possible, I think you guys should then use what little chakra you have for some tree climbing, although I doubt that you will be able to do much, but still. Even a little bit is better than nothing. Okay, let's move, people," shouted Naruto as he raised his fist up, mimicked by each of the Kagebushins as they set off to work in creating the silencing seals all over the place before disappearing into Naruto's apartment room and scaling it using what little chakra they have to use before dispersing. Seeing his clones doing their job, Naruto quickly grabbed his laptop and began to set it up before waiting for his clone with his and Kyome's dinner to arrive. Lucky for him, the clone returned before Kyome arrived. So giving the clone a nod to release itself, Naruto quickly put the takeaway box onto his kitchen table before setting some utensils and cups onto the table along with an assortment of drinks for both him and Kyome when she arrived, which hadn't taken longer than a few minutes past 6. Opening the door fully for his friend, Naruto couldn't help but smile as he threw his arm out towards the short hallway. "Welcome to Cast de Uzumaki, Kyome-chan. Hope you enjoy your stay," said Naruto in a jokey tone as Kyome walked into the apartment with a small grin on her face from Naruto's little announcement. Seeing Kyome sit down on his couch, Naruto quickly closed the door before locking it before moving towards his kitchen counter to grab the takeaway. Once he did, he sat himself next to Kyome, who seemed to be reading his notes. Oh crap, sure he did say he wrote it, but... However, from his position, he hadn't seen the blush that began to appear on Kyome's face as she continued reading. That was until Naruto stood in front of the girl with a wide-eye expression. "Is every chick I've gotten to know a pervert or something?" muttered Naruto quietly as he plopped himself down next to Kyome, who seemed to snap out of her daze and focus back onto Naruto. However, before she could speak, Naruto held out a small compact box towards her with a smile. I got you and me some takeaway noodles a few minutes before you popped up. Hope you like them, said Naruto in a slightly joyous tone as he opened his own little box before eating. Kyome soon joined afterwards as she had left straight from her club meeting to Naruto's without a single break. Once finished, Naruto and Kyome began to discuss about how the story should go, with Naruto having to explain in detail how the love-making would go, considering it was a story between two girls. When Kyome asked him how it would play out and how the two girls would express themselves, Naruto simply pointed towards Kyome and said in a blank tone, "You are a girl. I am a male. We males are not created to understand females." Hearing that, Kyome nodded her head in agreement, so she took over how the events would lead up to the two girls' ending. Before long, Naruto and Kyome had their story planned before the clock hit 9. Seeing this, Naruto decided to walk Kyome home as he didn't want to leave Kyome walking alone in the dark. Reaching Kyome's home, Naruto couldn't help but hug Kyome and mutter a quick thanks for all her trouble before she entered her home. She also returned the hug before disappearing into her home. Giving a small smile as he walked back home, Naruto couldn't help but feel excited for the book. Something he was sure his previous self would hate as the anti-pervert seeds had sunk deep into his body. But seeing as he was a healthy male, he knew that blocking all things involving the opposite sex wasn't a good thing. After all, ask Sasuke why ignoring the opposite sex isn't a good idea. Walking through the park, reason being the small reminder that the park gave him as he walked through it, Naruto couldn't help but feel a shiver raise up his spine as he appeared in the center of the park, only to widen his eyes as he saw a black-haired chick in a BDSM outfit aim a spear towards another person. Seeing this, Naruto quickly broke into action. "Kawarimi no Jutsu!" shouted Naruto as he swapped places with the man who was about to be stabbed, shocking the woman as she threw her spear only to watch as he dodged it with some slight effort. Going through the hand signs once more, Naruto swapped places with a small rock that was beside the man, who he had found out was Issei. Wait, wasn't Issei on a date? Well, look who's here. If it isn't Naruto Uzumaki. Does your forearm hurt? I did make sure to break it in a place that would hurt you for a while. Although, I am surprised that you managed to leave the schoolyard without any help, but now seeing as how you just helped my target, it would seem I have to kill you. Pity, I would love to hear you scream in pain as I slowly kill you," spoke the woman in the BDSM outfit as she created a pink spear and licked the edge of it. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he heard that. "Rukia?" asked Naruto, only watching as the woman gave a smirk before nodding. "Who else would like to break you some more, Naruto-kun?" "Rukia? Why, you said your name was Wayuma? What's going on here?" shouted Issei, his eyes going back and forth between the woman with pitch black wings and towards the blonde who had somehow just saved him a few moments ago. Seeing this, Naruto was about to answer, only to gnash his teeth as he grabbed Issei and jumped towards his right, seeing as how he lost a small bit of chakra on the substitution jutsu as he had to use his chakra to compensate the lack of material density just a few moments ago. Landing on the soft grass, Naruto quickly rolled into a somewhat standing position, while Issei was laying on his back in confusion as to why the blonde moved them. Issei tilted his head slightly only to see 3 spears embedded into the grass-covered ground where they once stood. Widening his eyes in confusion and shock, he finally noticed that he was being carried away from the black winged at a fast speed, the speed being that of a car. Tilting his head backwards a bit, Issei came upon the sight of blonde spiky hair. Closing his eyes and releasing a sigh of relief, Issei passed out, his mind thinking that he was safe. Over towards Reiner, however. "Stand still, you pathetic human!" screamed the black-winged woman with rage as she sent pink spear after pink spear towards Naruto, who was dodging with only a little difficulty. Dodging another spear, the blonde stood in place before pulling down an eyelid. Nah, nah. Rukia team can't hit me," spoke Naruto, holding his eyelid down as he tilted his head slightly, dodging another spear sent by the girl, who now had a deep hatred-fueled glare aimed towards Naruto, who simply dashed behind a tree. Seeing this, the fallen angel gave out a growl as the last time he went behind a tree, Issei had somehow disappeared without a trace. Something that worried her slightly before the blonde gained her attention once more. Holding her hands out to both sides of her body, Reiner grinned evilly as she created 2 spears, both glowing a menacing dark pink as more and more energy went into the spears. Having not seen the blonde move from behind the tree, the fallen angel gave a small chuckle before throwing her spears, watching with a smirk as the tree, along with the ones surrounding it, exploded into nothing but wooden shrapnel. Narrowing her eyes slightly, Reiner couldn't help but grin as she walked up to the, what appeared to be, dead Naruto, who simply had a hand sticking out from underneath piles of wood. Walking onto the piles of wood and hearing a crunching sound, Rainier couldn't help but chuckle as she twisted her foot slightly next to the hand, enjoying the sound of crunching wood by the second. Seems you were nothing but a fool, Uzumaki-kun. Although I would rather hear your screams of pain instead of the crunching sound of the wood beneath my feet, I'll take what I can get. After all, not only did you, a pathetic human, somehow teleport both Issei and yourself away from me, you simply wasted my time and let the perverted brat escape. Oh, woe is me, now I must chase after him, and no one can save him later, trash muttered Rainier as she began to flap her dark wings, aiming to lift herself off the ground in pursuit of Issei, only to widen her eyes when she felt someone grab her wing. Snap! Eh! Screamed Rainier as she felt one of her darkened wings snapped backwards. Turning her head slightly, Rainier came upon the sight of Naruto grinning as he held her unbroken wing in his hand. Sorry, but I got bored of listening to you. Oh yeah, I don't play to get even, I play to win, said Naruto before snapping the second wing, before throwing the now screaming woman across the field and into the fountain's water, which, although not deep enough to hold her body, was deep enough to hold her slightly as he walked towards her with a narrowed gaze. Standing a few feet away from the now tearing woman, something that he was internally sad about as he didn't like to cause pain to anyone unless forced, Naruto crossed his arms and stared into Rainier's half-lidded violet eyes. Who are you? Asked Naruto in a serious tone, his eyes staring into the now angry woman, who simply attempted to raise a single arm to create another spear. This was stopped by the killing intent emitted by the blonde. Although it wasn't much to a shinobi, it apparently was quite potent to a girl with black wings. Raising her half-lipped eyes towards Naruto's blue eyes, Rainier let out a growl before spitting towards him, her spit only reaching just past the fountain, defiantly not far enough to reach Naruto in any way. Fuck you, replied Rainier, as she felt her wings healing slowly from the damage Naruto gave her. Meanwhile, Naruto simply gave out a sigh before walking towards the woman while increasing his killer intent by the step, something that seemed to scare the shit out of the woman as she was now visibly shaking from the killer intent. Oh, if only she had felt the killer intent Zabuza gave off when he was a genin, she would have killed herself by now. Crouching slightly in front of the woman, Naruto glared into the violet eyes as he once again spoke in a serious and threatening tone once more. Who are you? Asked Naruto once more, his eyes steeling themselves as they peered into the woman's half-lidded ones. And because of this he was able to dodge the blue spear that was sent his way. Lucky for Rainier and unlucky for him, Rainier seemed to dodge the attack slightly before raising herself out from the fountain and spreading her wings, showing her unbroken wings to Naruto, who simply chid before sending his eyes towards a man who seemed to wear an investigator uniform, and guess what? He also had black wings. Stealing his face, Naruto sent his glaze between the two others, one being the used to be called Rukia and the other some investigator wannabe. Crossing his arms, Naruto couldn't help focus on what he was going to do. Now that there was two of them, he had to think of some sort of escape plan, reason being, if the two had good teamwork, it would reduce his chances of survival by a considerable amount, and with him currently running on a large genin reserves, seeing as how he used the Kage Bunshin and overcharged Kawarimi Jutsu and on top of that a Bunshin, which wasn't exactly a lot, but still noticeable slightly. Naruto only had a few jutsus he could use to battle, and that was if he got the chance to do so. Clenching his fists, Naruto narrowed his eyes as he heard the man in a cloak mutter worthless towards him, something that Rainier seemed to slightly disagree on before nodding her head nonetheless. Moving chakra into his legs, Naruto gave a small grunt before appearing right in front of the investigator before shoving his fist into the man's gut. Watching as he flew back from his punch, Naruto quickly raised his right arm, catching Rainier's wrist before sending a crashing blow to her hip with his left hand, only to watch as she too flew away from the impact. Seeing this, Naruto gave a small grin before following up on his pursuit on Rainier, seeing as how the other male disappeared into the trees from his hit. Catching up to Rainier's body, or Rukia's in his case, Naruto sent his right arm into Rainier's firm flat stomach, which sent her into the air before he jumped up and grasped Rainier's ankle midair. Going down! Shouted Naruto as he enhanced his arm with chakra before sending Rainier's body crashing into the earth below, soon following up with a double foot stomp only to widen his eyes as Rainier created a total of 5 spears while falling. Seeing this, Naruto quickly used a Kawarimi to substitute with the park bench, thankful that he hadn't needed to waste more chakra on the mask to swap places. That was until he got a punch to the jaw and a spear through his thigh. Ga! Shouted Naruto as he was sent tumbling into the ground as he focused on the blue spear that was jutting through his thigh. Looking up towards the man in a coat, Naruto quickly used a short shunshin to appear behind the man. Using a chakra-enhanced elbow, Naruto gave a slightly bloody grin as the man was sent sailing away. Reaching down while using a tree to stand, Naruto gave a grunt as he yanked the pure blue spear out of his thigh. Ignoring the pain of the spear being pulled out of his thigh, Naruto only had time to widen his eyes as Rainier appeared in front of him with a glare in place as she held a single spear within her hand. "Any last words, magician?" asked Rainier, her tone angry beyond recognition as she lifted her spear above her head as she aimed towards the now currently crippled blonde, who simply tilted his head. "Yeah, what's a magician?" asked Naruto with a grin before he pushed himself off the tree before reaching out and grabbing Rainier's shoulder before sending out lightning nature chakra straight into her body. "Gah!" screamed Rainier as her body shook as lightning coursed through her, attacking each and every cell and organ within her body. Seeing this, Naruto was about to increase the input before he quickly used another kawarimi with the, now ripped in two, park bench. Narrowly avoiding another blue spear that was sent towards him and Rainier, once again the spear missed Rainier with its on-point accuracy. However, just as he landed from his kawarimi, Naruto felt his right leg give out underneath him, sending his body straight to the floor, causing the blonde to bite the inside of his mouth to hold in the scream that wanted to desperately escape from his throat. However, he managed to contain the scream. Twisting himself into a sitting position, Naruto turned his body to face the two black-winged male and female with a small glare as he watched the male heal the woman's paralysis caused from his nature manipulation. It wasn't long, however, when the two turned towards him with an angry glare, which slowly turned into a sadistic stare as they saw the slowly closing wound on his thigh, something which was taking a good amount of his dwindling chakra reserves. Seeing the two coming closer towards him in an agonizing slow rate, Naruto couldn't help but raise his hands in front of his sitting body before going through both the snake and rat hand signs in front of him, something that seemed to confuse the two as they raised their eyebrows as they walked towards him. Grinning slightly, showing his slightly bloody teeth and lips, Naruto began to circulate the small amount of chakra into his system into a final move. "You lose, Megan, Narakumi no Jutsu," muttered Naruto as he watched the two widen their eyes in pure shock, frozen in their own personal fears. Seeing this, Naruto lifted his head up slightly before releasing a breath of relief as the two stood frozen and paralyzed in their worst nightmare. That was until he snapped his head towards the woods where he just felt his clone pop. "No," muttered Naruto as the image of a small blonde-haired girl standing over his near-empty chakraless clone with a spear. Before Naruto could regain his focus, he felt his body being thrown through the air, landing in front of the previously frozen winged pair, who seemed to only growl in rage as both lifted a leg up before stomping on his stomach, making him cough out a small bit of blonde as he felt his stomach squash under the feet of the two. Not a moment later he had been turned over onto his stomach before having his body pierced by spears, immobilizing him in place. It seemed that the winged group were experts as they avoided every vital point on his body. Didn't mean it hurt though. "What took you so long, Calawarner Millet? I sent you out the need for help a few minutes ago. The blonde-haired bastard here was a lot tougher than I thought he would be, although he was more interesting than before. He could either have a sacred gear held within him somewhere that allows him to heal faster. Although that's a long shot as there isn't a known sacred gear that can do that," muttered Rukia towards her colleges, who simply huffed. "We were going after Issei. Seems like the blonde-haired man here was able to clone himself as another him was looking after the brown-haired pervert. It was quite boring after we killed the clone. The brown-haired man simply woke up and begged us not to kill him. We didn't even bother staying around. It was too pathetic to watch him slowly die," muttered a calm tone. "Yeah, Reina-sama. I'm kinda jealous I didn't get to battle the blonde longer, but it looks like this guy's the real deal. The clone could only do half of what the area looks like," finished a childish voice. However, when he heard the two finish speaking, which he guessed were the blue and blonde-haired woman from his clone's memories, Naruto could not help but watch as the image of Nagato, in his pain form standing above him with the chakra rod stabbed through his body. That image only brought another. The other image was watching him fail to save someone from Pain's attack, that being Hinata who tried to save him. Seeing the image, Naruto began to move in determination. "If I can just get up, maybe I can save Issei Kaman Uzumaki. Don't fail someone else. Even if you didn't know them. Don't give up," thought Naruto, only to widen his eyes for a split second before slowly closing them, now having 4 new spears going through his body, making him stop his squirming and fall back onto the ground with the life dwindling within his half-lidded eyes as he stared towards the direction Issei's body now probably lay dead. "And no, not again, please Uzumaki, stand up, you've been in worse, damn it. Come on, Naruto's thoughts trailed off towards the end as he felt the slight wind generated from the now disappearing black-winged people. As he was laying down on the floor, spears embedded into him, Naruto couldn't help but shut his eyes in sadness and anger as he felt his heart rate slow down by the second. I failed and not even 3 weeks after gaining my chakra here I am dying after failing to protect someone else. Erosen and Bachan Kaka-sensei old man team hopefully I'll get to began Naruto. Only to finally feel his heartbeat stop, his now slowly cooling body lying dead against the cold floor as the wind howled through the park trees in what seemed like sadness. Silence enveloped the area as only the wind howled in sadness of the now dead Uzumaki. And no. I'm not dying here. I won't leave what little friends I have behind, screamed Naruto as he snapped his eyes wide open, showing the crimson gaze with a single comma swirling around a black pupil. Feeling his chakra come back to him, Naruto began to overload his system, desperately trying to push his body against the ground and out the spears, but just as his body was failing him, Naruto watched with his now scarlet gaze as a flying white object slammed into his face, reigniting his chakra and strength once more. And within a few agonizing seconds he did it. He, Naruto Uzumaki, pushed himself through spears of ranging colors. Standing up and feeling his wounds now healing at a faster rate, Naruto quickly snapped his head towards the forest where he last remembered Issei being in. Taking a step, the blonde suddenly looked towards the ground, only gasping slightly as he raised a hand up towards his eyes holding the same pattern as that of his friend and brother. Shaking his head, Naruto began to move towards the forest at a great speed, a speed he himself couldn't help but be amazed at before focusing on the path ahead of him. However, when he came upon the location of Issei, Naruto stared into the blue-green eyes of a woman he had only met early on in the day. "Rias Gremry?" muttered Naruto as he watched the shock on the redhead's face for a few moments before she replied. Naruto Uzumaki muttered Rias in shock. The next day. "Whoever you are you are one badass motherfucker," thought Naruto as he stared into his bathroom mirror, simply sending chakra into his eyes and taking it away, switching from Sharingan-less to Sharingan on a whim. After coming back from the park, making sure to find Rias and the apparently still alive Issei later on, Naruto had rushed to his apartment, ignoring the fact that he was dripping blood all over the floor as he ran towards his home, before he simply threw the door open, not even bothering to shut it, before heading towards his bathroom mirror, like he currently was, before he began to activate his single-comma Sharingan. When he found out he indeed had the same cursed eyes as his stab-happy friend, Naruto had instantly went into his room and picked up his original book, only to widen his eyes when he saw the front page have, in bold words, "Activate your Sharingan." Just after he did, Naruto could only gasp as he read a message saying that it was a replacement for something forever lost. When he read that, Naruto could only stare into an image of a large nine-tailed fox, grinning towards him. While Kurama, the fox's name, was a tight ass, he didn't know that when both he and Naruto bumped fists, he had become a precious person to Naruto. It was because of this fact that Naruto shed a small tear before wiping it off. He would later find a small picture of both him and Kurama, with him on Kurama's head, held within his mindscape. How he got a picture of that, he had no clue. But he wasn't going to complain about having something to remember the old fox by. The next shock he got was when he reread his stat chart. Safe to say, he was shocked. Chakra control mid-jonin. Chakra amount mid-jonin. Body overall mid-chunin. Strength high chunin. Speed low jonin. Stamina high jonin. Endurance mid-jonin. Experience mid-genin. Taijutsu mid-chunin. Ninjutsu high chunin. Genjutsu low chunin. Kenjutsu high genin. Bukijutsu high genin. Medical ninjutsu low academy. Kekai ninjutsu non-existent. Fuinjutsu genin. Level 1 pass. Level 2 pass. Level 3 in progress. Nature transformation high chunin. Wind nature transformation low jonin. Water nature transformation high chunin. Earth nature transformation mid chunin. Fire nature transformation mid chunin. Lightning nature transformation low jonin. Dijitsu genin. Sharingan genin. Rank genin level ninja, unable to progress from skills. Kenjutsu. Bukijutsu. Fuinjutsu. Medical ninjutsu. Kekai ninjutsu. Dijitsu. The things that came to his shock were his sudden boosts and his physical traits, that being strength, speed, and the like. Although he sure as hell wasn't going to complain about it, but it did worry him somewhat as to how exactly it increased by a large amount. "Anything interesting happened to you, Naruto-kun?" asked Kyome as Naruto had met her near the front entrance of the school when he walked in. Giving the girl a lazy grin, Naruto simply chuckled slightly. "Oh, you have no idea," replied Naruto as he stared into the blue sky, his eyes, just for a second, shifting from blue to red to blue once more as he lowered his head towards Kyome. "Well, impressive creative story there, Naruto-san. I guess that you can be creative after all, although, just a word of advice, next time pick a character's name that isn't your own, okay? It would make it seem more original," spoke the relief teacher as she watched Naruto give a nod before walking towards his desk after having just completed his create a story assignment given the day before. Placing himself down onto his seat, Naruto couldn't help but grin as he laid his head on his arms, reason being he had just bullshitted his way through an assignment he hadn't even bothered completing. How did he bullshit his way through the assignment? Well, he used a way not many, if none at all, could. Kagebushin. Oh, they were the best when needed to do the most mundane things. Not paying attention after his little oral story / presentation, Naruto couldn't help but release a sigh of relief when he heard the bells go for lunch. It had been a very boring morning after all, unless you think hours upon hours of listening to people interesting. Moving his head off his arms and standing up, making sure to grab his bag as he stood, Naruto felt himself gain a grin as he walked out of the previously filled classroom, his grin firmly in place as he walked around the school's corridor, making sure that he didn't collide with other students as he walked towards the stairs, absent-minded, thinking about a certain red-haired woman as the previous night flashed through his head. Then there was his new eyes. Eyes that felt uncompleted, as if they should achieve something more later on. But what exactly were they supposed to achieve? Sure, he knew that there was 3 levels, probably more, but he didn't remember what. Shaking his head slightly to shake his train of thought away, Naruto felt the sun's golden rays hit his face and arms as his short-sleeved shirt blew slightly in the wind which also caressed Naruto's face as it went by. Shoving his hands into his pocket, Naruto quickly began to walk towards the small forest that surrounded the school, intent on finding somewhere private for him to finish his level 3 Fuinjutsu book, seeing as how he was finally near the end of it. Although he probably would have finished it if he hadn't gotten a few spears shoved into his body. Yeah, it was a bit weird knowing that you were dead, only to be pulled back to life through sheer stubbornness and stupid luck. Walking past the few shrubby bushes that appeared at the front of the small forest, Naruto quickly sent his head behind him for a few moments before widening his grin before turning his head back towards the trees as he jumped towards them, happily grinning as his feet planted themselves firmly onto the tree branch before he dashed a fair bit away, seeing as how it was a Thursday and there wasn't a 5th period, which allowed him and other students to do whatever they wanted if they were in the 2nd or 3rd year classes. Lucky for him, he was a 2nd year. As such, he gained another hour to study his Fuinjutsu book. Although now that he thought about it, the hour was mostly for the clubs to get together and begin earlier than usual. Landing on a sturdy branch, Naruto quickly propped himself down on the branch, his right foot dangling down from the tree branch as he crossed his left foot across his body, using it to hold his arms in a comfortable position as he pulled the book out from his bag before opening it up to the current page he was on previously. Releasing his grin that sat upon his face, Naruto couldn't help but let an honest smile of peace appear on his face as he read the level 3 version of Fuinjutsu. Fuinjutsu, the art of the Uzumaki clan. It really warmed his heart knowing that his family and clan had something that no other normal ninjas had. Sure, there were a few examples, his godfather and father being 2 examples, but really it was the Uzumaki who were the ninja masters of Fuinjutsu, the supposed hardest ninja technique to learn and understand. As the seconds turned into minutes, and the minutes turned into hours, Naruto honestly lost himself in his study of Fuinjutsu, his mind scattered as hundreds of seal ideas appeared all around his mind as he shut his book after having read the last sentence and explanation of the art. Leaning his head against the tree and gazing up towards the slightly clouded sky, Naruto couldn't help but gaze into the blue color and feel his mind calm itself down as he just felt the world envelop him as it had its own energy. The utter feeling of peace was amazing as he sat on the tree branch and shut his eyes as he sifted through what he learned from his level 3 Fuinjutsu book. However, it wasn't long before Naruto snapped his eyes open when he felt someone grab his dangling foot. Snapping his eyes towards the forest floor, Naruto came upon the sight of the Prince of Kokiba. Blinking for a moment, Naruto tilted his head in confusion. Can I help you there, Kiba?" asked Naruto, mentally forcing himself to pay attention as an image of a dog-like boy and his small partner, which was a small white dog, stood side by side looking towards him. At this, Kiba seemed to nod. "Hi, on behalf of Rias Gremory. I have been sent to retrieve you and take you to our club," said Kiba as he waited on the forest floor for Naruto to move. He was slightly suppressed when Naruto simply slipped off the tree and landed in a crouch before standing up and casually crossing his arms. "Well? Rias told me yesterday that she would send someone to come pick me up," muttered Naruto as he gave a small yawn, not even bothering to cover it with a hand as he looked towards Kiba, who simply nodded his head before walking further into the forest, confusing Naruto as not even a few more meters away from his position was a large 3-story building that looked slightly worn out from time. However, now that he got a slightly better look, Naruto deduced that the building was the old Ko Academy main building, the building that was used before the school turned co-ed. Watching as Kiba walked in through the front door, Naruto simply shrugged his shoulders before walking in after the blonde-haired male, seeing as how he was asked to meet Rias only a few moments ago. However, any thought of the building being slightly old flew right out of his head. Sure, the outside seemed to have some better days, but the inside. "Holy shit," muttered Naruto as he sent his eyes from paint to painting, floor to ceiling and everything in between as with childlike curiosity kicked in within Naruto as he followed Kiba up the stairs. However, before Naruto had even went up one flight of stairs, the tail sounds of water hitting the floor drew his attention as he lifted his head directly up before looking towards Kiba, who seemed to stop as Naruto gazed directly above him. "Can you hear a shower up there?" asked Naruto as Kiba raised an eyebrow at him for a moment before shaking his head with a smile. "No, I cannot hear a shower, Naruto-kun. However, it does amaze me that you can hear the shower going off from down here. Most of us can only hear the sounds of the shower when we're at least halfway up. Well, apart from our mascot anyway. But good ears, Naruto-kun," replied Kiba with his smile now firmly placed upon his face as he continued to climb the stairs up, a curious Naruto following behind him as they finally reached 2 large double brown doors. Kiba, seeing as how he was showing Naruto around, opened the door with a smile still held onto his face as he pulled the door open, motioning Naruto to follow him in as the spiky blonde-haired male waited to be asked in. "Hey, it was only polite after all." Walking into the room, Naruto couldn't help but let out a small whistle of approval as he looked around the room, taking time to really check out the furniture held within the room. "Naruto-kun, I must go and get Issei-kun now. Please take a seat and wait," said Kiba in a polite tone, nodding his head and moving around to one of the couches to sit on. Naruto watched as Kiba gave him a nod before walking out of the room, closing the door with a quiet sound being created by the door closing. Seeing as how he was now all by himself in a room, with the sole exception of the person, who he guessed was Rias, was having a shower. Seeing as how he would be here for a bit, Naruto reached into his bag, making sure to quietly unzip it so that he doesn't disturb the person within the shower, and pulled out his medical ninjutsu book before he began to read while listening to the sounds of the shower hitting either the floor or the person within the shower, as he waited. It wasn't long before he heard the double doors open. However, instead of Kiba and Issei appearing, Naruto came upon the sight of a small white-haired girl who he knew was in the first-year group. However, she, the white-haired girl, also had the reputation of being the school's mascot due to her adorable looks. "Hi there," said Naruto with a slight grin on his face as he waved to the slightly surprised girl before her face dropped back into a purely blank face before she simply walked towards the couches and sat across from him. Seeing this, Naruto simply shrugged before focusing back on his medical book as the two sat in silence. However, it seemed as if everyone was finally appearing when the sound of the door opened up once more, showing both Kiba and Issei standing side by side as they walked into the room. Not even a moment after the two entered, she shower stopped before Rias Gremory appeared clad within a towel. Safe to say, he raised his Kakashi mask up slightly behind the book to cover the blush he had and only lowered it when Rias returned wearing the female version of the school uniform. Something that helped stop his blush as he couldn't see more than Rias's face and hair, and just about every curve the woman had. Snapping himself out of his slight distraction, Naruto gave Rias a small smile and wave. "Hey Rias. How's it going?" asked Naruto, only getting a small smirk from the woman before she turned her head away, causing the blonde to narrow his eyes in irritation. Did everyone have a secret meeting before he arrived saying that they couldn't reply to him? What the hell, man? It seems Naruto-kun is upset no one replied to him. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, Akino-senpai is here to look after you, purred Akino, the woman he saw when he and Rias met in the corridor. Feeling two soft squishy things at the back of his head only made Naruto blush. Especially since those soft squishy things were circling around in small circles. However, before long Akino stopped, mainly due to the twitch Rias had given off from watching Akino. Ahem. coughed Rias as she covered her mouth with a closed fist, a small twitch appearing from her right eyebrow as Akino sent the red-haired woman a grin as she sat next to Naruto, who simply had angled the book so that he wasn't directly facing Akino, less risking the chances of her catching him blushing still from her previous motions. Seeing Akino calm down, Rias clapped her hands, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. Seeing as she now had the complete attention of everyone in the room, Rias began her speech that she had been preparing since exiting the shower not even a few minutes ago. Glad to see everyone made it. Welcome Issei, Naruto. I am pleased that the two of you had come with Kiba and waited patiently for me to finish my shower. Began Rias, her tone being extremely kind and soft as she began to speak about exactly why both Naruto and Issei were here. As you know, I am Rias Gremory, the club president of the Occult Research Club, or OCR for short. Our current members are Akino Himejima, Kiba Yuto and Kaneko Tuju. However, let me be honest with you, the OCR club is simply a cover for us devils, said Rias with a serious tone, only making Naruto raise an eyebrow. However, before he could open his mouth to comment, he felt his right eyebrow twitch when he heard a shout. D-devils. And no way, Rias-senpai. There is no way such a beauty like you can be a devil. There are just no way. Oh. I get it. Funny joke, Rias-senpai. I never thought a great lady like yourself would be quite a jokester. Are those wings? Asked Issei, his shouts slowly becoming silent towards the end as Rias simply grinned towards him and had a pair of black bat-like wings sprout from her back, shocking the brunette as he sent his head around the room, only widening his eyes further as he saw that Kaneko, Akino, and even Kiba had a pair of bat-like wings sprouting from their backs. And no way, muttered Issei before looking towards the only spiky-haired blonde in the room, noticing that he didn't have any bat-like wings. However, before he could speak, Rias beat him to it. You also have this ability, Issei-kun. Just focus on your back and a pair of wings should appear. Don't worry, the wings don't damage the cloths you currently wear while both appearing and disappearing. Give it a go, Issei-kun. You too, Naruto-san. Finished Rias as she looked towards Naruto, who simply lowered his medical book before standing up, not wanting to have any wings that could be damaged. Looking towards Issei, Naruto watched as the brunette simply cocked his head to the left before focusing on his back. And before long, he had a pair of wings appear. What the hell? I shouldn't be able to do this. I'm just a human, said Issei as his eyes were fixed onto his two new, and flapping, wings. Seeing this, Naruto couldn't help but grin in anticipation, even if he had no clue what the hell was going on, as he shut his eyes and focused on his back. When seconds of focus became minutes, everyone in the room noticed that something was wrong. Especially the original 4 members of the ORC, as summoning a devil's wings was the simplest thing to do. Hell, walking was considered more difficult than summoning a pair of wings. Snapping his eyes open and relaxing his body, Naruto couldn't help but notice the looks of concern that was running through the room as he attempted to grow out a pair of wings. However, when he realized that it wasn't happening, the blonde relaxed his stance, holding a shocked expression as he plopped himself back down onto the soft couch with a pair of wide eyes. Sigh, it seems I was correct. It seems that dud of a pawn piece did only work in certain parts, muttered Rias, catching the attention of everyone in the room as they looked towards her in confusion. Seeing this, Rias gave out a sigh. Okay, let's get this out of the way first. Last night wasn't a dream, Issei, Naruto. I don't know how, but last night I had been summoned by Issei, who was literally on the brink of death. I had revived him the moment he had died with 6 pawn pieces and 1 mutated pawn piece. I will get to what I mean by pawn pieces, Issei, muttered Rias, making the brunette nod his head slightly as he waited, absent-mindedly making his wings appear and disappear as he listened into Rias's explanation. Anyway, while I did have enough pieces to revive Issei, I had noticed that, during the time of reviving him, I had lost a single pawn of mine. That single pawn piece was what I considered a dud, as it was practically worthless. It was too weak to revive anyone, even Issei, when I attempted to revive you with it. However, not even a few minutes later Naruto appeared. It was then I felt the dud chest piece's energy residing inside of Naruto. That was before the energy completely disappeared and all that was left was the presence of that single piece. I never realized that while bringing Naruto under my peerage he didn't gain all the abilities that a devil possesses. Something that can be a major disability for Naruto if he was to battle those of who have a light affinity. Finished Rias before she pulled out a small box from the table next to her. Opening it up, the redhead simply poured out the contents, simply showing a few chest pieces. Seeing this, Naruto attempted to speak, only to give up when Rias's voice cut through the air. Okay, how this works is, began Rias, only making Naruto stare blankly towards the woman before lifting up his medical ninjutsu book slightly higher, as he attempted to become immersed into his current field of study. God help me, muttered Naruto as he missed the short flinch everyone within the room had before continuing listening to Rias's voice. Seeing as how this was likely how the rest of the period would go, Naruto simply immersed himself into his medical ninjutsu book. And done, Kayom-chan, said Naruto as he turned his head away from the decently sized laptop screen towards the passed-out girl on the futon near his desk. Seeing this, the blonde simply released a sigh. 2 whole weeks of writing together on my, and her, book, and she keeps passing out that little pervert. Well, at least she's passing out from my Ika and not my Yuri book. I mean, just imagine all the looks of sadness that would appear on every dude's face if they found out that Kayom-chan here was a lesbian. Oh well, better wake her up now though. Naruto with a grin as he remembered a specific memory of Jiraiya, which happened to be how he exclaimed that his beloved Ika was something that he wanted to pass on to him, and back then he declined, and thus he had no clue what happened to the book story as he only gotten that single memory. But alas, the current Naruto decided to accept Jiraiya's request, thus began Ika, the fountain of the shinobis. Basically, it was every male and shinobi who he was close to, being all grouped up and put into an intense drama series with the smut inside of it, of course, as if there wasn't any smut within the novel, then it wouldn't be considered Ika. Shaking his head from the thought, Naruto couldn't help but grin as he saw Kayom laying spread eagle with blood going down her nose and face. It was incredibly hilarious when he got Kayom to read his first Ika sex scene. The memories of Kayom running towards the toilets and a very big blush on her face. Priceless. Shaking off his grin, Naruto moved his right hand towards Kayom's shoulder before shaking her awake softly. Soon Kayom began to open her emerald eyes that were staring into Naruto's own 2 blue ones. Pervert, muttered Kayom as she pushed herself into a seating position, only making the male blonde grin at her as he handed her a wet cloth. I'm the pervert, Kayom-chan? Who, as I recall, jumped at the chance of reading my Ika, the fountain of the shinobis? Because I was sure it wasn't me. Oh, by the way, you got a little something on your face, replied Naruto with a grin as he handed the cloth to Kayom, who simply glared at the taller blonde. Bite me, replied Kayom as she turned her head away from Naruto, who had gotten a small gleam within his eyes as he moved behind Kayom and moved his head next to her ear. With pleasure, growled out Naruto, enjoying the rapidly coloring cheeks of Kayom